Hope everybody's doing well. A little bit different. No Ray tonight, but you got me. We'll talk some Mets. We'll talk shop as we have an off day. It was really not supposed to be. Mets were supposed to play baseball tonight, but the rain got in the way. So we'll be dealing with a doubleheader tomorrow, 1:10 p.m., 7:10 p.m. tomorrow at Citi Field. We'll get on into all the probables. We'll get into today in Mets history. We have some trivia. We have some stats, some splits I want to look at as well, and then some general conversations as we get the night going. But hope everybody's doing well. Again, Ray will not be with us tonight, as you can tell already. But hey, let's get to the moment of the day because today is a special day in Mets history. Today is a day that a lot of people look at the Mets and laugh, rightfully so. Bobby Bonilla Day. Now, let's get this up here. Just going to go through this. I love this account, by the way. Shout out This Day in Mets History. I followed them for a long time. One of my first follows on this Twitter journey, I guess you want to call it. But 2011 receives his first deferred payment of 1.19 million. Of course, we know 2000, the year that the Mets had to buy out the $20 million contract, led to Mike Hampton, led to David Wright. They didn't have the money. You know, the Mets were dealing with a lot of financial problems for many years. But this was a mark of that. This definitely reminded Mets fans over and over again that, hey, you needed better ownership. And lucky today we have Steve Cohen, who is just never going to do something like this, you would think. But hey, in the world of deferments that we live in, guys like Bobby Bonilla, Chris Davis, Ken Griffey Jr., they're all still getting paid by their respective teams. Max Scherzer, I believe, also is another guy. So shout out Bobby Bonilla Day every July 1st. Want to make a note of this, just 1.19 million. And 2 years ago in 23, Verlander was playing the Giants. It's the first Mets game I ever beat reported. It was Bobby Bonilla Day, and they ended up winning. I think it was 4-3. And yeah, it was just one of those days. I think it was one of Verlander's first couple starts back, too, because 23, he didn't start the season on time. So it was just some good stuff there. So we'll keep this moving along. Hopefully everything's all queued up. We're rolling. Everything's good. There you go, Mike Mayer. Yep, deferment day. Everything's good. 2017. The 2017 Mets as Drupal Carrera bobblehead day. We'll play the audio too. Why not?
In the air, right center field. Back goes Herrera. Near the wall.
Some good stuff there.
Cabrera does it again.
Put the Phillies ahead. Don't want to demonetize Ray or anything here, but it's Drupal Carrera, 2-run home run. Great stuff there. Put New York ahead. So all good stuff. 2017, 1990. This day in Mets history. Mickey Sasser scores the winning run against Ken Griffey, who makes a bad throw on a Kevin Elster bunt.
He's bunting and he pushes it toward third. Griffey will go to third and he throws it away. Sasser scores and the Mets win it 3-2.
And we'll get to questions too, guys, as we get this rolling along. I appreciate everybody in here too. It's just an off night, kind of just chopping it up, making sure everybody's good mental state. I know it's tough, but Josh Satin here in 2013 off J.J. Putz, the former Met. 13th inning, Andrew Brown, 2-run single, Marlon Byrd scores. Good stuff here.
And Satin lines one base hit. Bird is being waved around. Here comes Kubal's throw to the plate.
He's safe. So look at that. Great moment there. 2013 Mets history, keeping it moving along here. 2024, a year ago today, JD Martinez broke a 3-3 tie in the 10th. This was a good moment here. Let's get this audio.
As into the green, a 3-run homer. JD breaks out with a huge home run in the 10th inning. He had been 0 for his last 12, but he unloaded one. A 3-run shot, his 10th of the year. And the
shout out SNY for all of these clips. And this is the one I wanted to save. 2016, a young whippersnapper by the name of Brandon Nimmo hit his first major league home run. Look at the swing difference. The long pants, definitely different. But you just look at the swing, and then he's never lost the energy. Brandon Nimmo.
Nimmo again with a chance to break this game open. Second and third, 2 out.
And Nimmo cracks one deep right center field. Looking up Hayward. It's out of here. Brandon Nimmo's first major league home run. It's a 3-run shot.
Look at that energy. So good stuff there from the young pup, Brandon Nimmo, the rookie monster, was the post headline the back page that next day. So all good stuff. Wanted to get that out of the way. Love this account, truthfully do. So if you're not following it, free plug here. This day in Mets history over there on X. All right, let's get to some of your guys' comments, and then we'll keep this moving along. I have some stats I want to show, some splits, nothing too crazy. I'm not going to go too into the weeds here. Shit's whack. Let's get me up here. Why not? LBGO says, yeah, these games have not been good for the Mets. This has been awful. This stretch has not been good. This is the main topic of the conversation tonight, but it's just not been good. And you get swept by the Pirates. Nobody's going to sit here and feel sorry for the Mets, right? You have to put up your best foot forward. And right now they're not doing it. Right now they're not playing good baseball. They're playing sloppy. The prospects aren't hitting. The timely hitting. The bullpen not looking sharp. The starters not giving you length. So it's really become a trickle-down effect. Can't really blame one person. I know everybody wants to blame Eric Chavez, the hitting coach. Not now. Just let it all play out. He had an exclusive too this morning and talking about just how he needs to be more patient. Funny enough, Stearns is more patient than him. So if that needs to tell you anything, this guy is not the one who will be fired. Should he? That's a different question. But right now, the Mets need to figure out other things than their hitting coach. They need to learn how to hit. So let's keep moving along here. ACJ. Doubleheader means double trouble. We don't have the pitching. It feels that way, right? You look at it and you say, this doubleheader, I am nervous because if, God forbid, you get your starter out in the fourth inning tomorrow, things are not going to look good. So you really have to play it smart if you're the Mets and hope you get innings out of your starters. That's really it. If we're talking about the big problem right now, it's a trickle-down effect from that. It's been a real issue. Walks have been an issue, certainly, but, and injuries. That has also crippled the Mets. It cripples every team in baseball. But Griffin Canning going down for the whole year, that's tough. That's going to hurt. Senga out for a prolonged period. Minaya out to begin the year. Montas out to begin the year. These are tough things to deal with as the season goes on. Battlefield. Dan, when will McClain finally be up? I know. Nolan McClain, the talk of the town. His numbers have been great. He is somebody who, again, continues to excel at AAA level. I think it's just a matter of time. And we go back to patience, hitting side, patience on the pitching side. You do scratch your head and say, why is Justin Hageman up here? Why are these guys getting opportunities before McClain? I think a lot of it is just the confidence thing you're dealing with. You don't want to call up a guy and have him get rocked and then, have him sent back down. It's just a whole thing. I do think his time is coming. Very, very soon you'll see Nolan McClain. Don't hold me to that. I'm not giving you an exact date, but I do think that he will be up with this team before the deadline and make a spot start. After that, we'll see what happens. But he should be up here, you would think, very soon. You would think. Emmanuel, the Mets need to look into the minor league system. Nolan and Tong are dominant, or trade for an ace, a hitter, or the bullpen. Well, it's a good point. And I will address the trade deadline later. Just some names to throw at you because I think it's important when thinking about the deadline. You're facing one of them tomorrow, or supposed to today, Freddie Peralta. That's an arm you should definitely go out and consider. The connection to Stearns, the cheap contract, team-friendly contract, that's an arm I would definitely consider at the deadline. McClain, going back to him again, he is somebody who has big league stuff. There's no denying it. Ray has been on it for a while. I've definitely known about McClain, but you really seen the emergence in 2025. I mean, he's for real. And I want to see him up here. Tong is a little bit different. I think you're dealing with confidence issues, both of them, not fragile as people, but you don't want to rush something that you think you're sitting on a gold mine in the case of McClain and in the case of Tong. If you bring up Tong right now, sure. That's called up Pintaro from AA. They've definitely shown that they can do that if they're willing to go into AA Binghamton and bring a guy up. But I think it's the similar thing with Tong. You don't want him to get rocked at the big league level. Not saying he would, but I think you do need a little bit more seasoning when it comes to a guy like that. He's been the best pitcher in AA. It's not even close. So as long as you keep ahead of your competition, when you get up to the big leagues, hopefully you stay ahead of that competition too. That's really the goal. Just keep the progression for a guy like Tong. You don't want to rush perfection. But I hear you. You have to go out there, get an ace. I know that's the topic of conversation. Do you need an ace in 2025? I mean, look at the Dodgers last year. I mean, who was really the ace of that staff? But I'm of the old school mindset. You still need to bring in a guy who can get you multiple innings and get you multiple outs. So that's definitely what I'm considering there. We'll circle back to the questions because I do have a lot of things on our plate here with trade deadline names I want to throw out you. There's not going to be a lot of starters, but I do have a couple names there. But really relievers. Really do want to hunker down on this reliever market as we get closer to the deadline and considering some names for the Mets. But let's look at some splits, right? And I know this is more of the minutia. People don't really, it's more, Dan, who really cares? Certain numbers I want you guys to realize, right? And let me get this question. Manuel, thank you for the question. I love stats. I think there's a big place for stats in baseball. Advanced stats, definitely. That's where the game's going. That's where it's really been for the past couple of years. But you don't really need to be overwhelmed with all these stats. Not going to overwhelm everybody here. Let's look at some simple stuff. When Brandon Nimmo bats second in the Mets lineup, it's not rocket science. Look at the numbers. When he's batting second, he has a .323 batting average. Keeping it very simple. Not going into OPS plus, not going into weighted on base average, not getting WRC plus. When he bats second, he is a .323 hitter. Now you see first, fourth, fifth, sixth, eighth. Let's do a little bit of I'll get that calendar out of here. Deep dive, right? First, batting 111. Second, .323. And then look at all these other numbers, not even worth talking about. Brandon Nimmo deserves, I'd say at this point in his career, he's a 10-year veteran. He should, he's not going to do it, but have a say in where he bats in the lineup. Now, he's also a really good big league player where he's not going to be, I need to bat second, I need to bat first. The Mets will bat him wherever he wants and wherever he needs to be, and Brandon Nimmo is going to be fine with it. I think we all get that. But if you're constructing a lineup, because that's the number one thing I keep hearing, that the Mets have a lineup construction issue, right? They're not constructing the lineup as best of the ability that they can. If you're looking at this, never move Brandon Nimmo off the 2. But these are conversations that continue to be had between everybody, I'd imagine, in the system. Like, where does Soto need to bat? Let's look at the numbers. Let's do our own due diligence here and look at some of these Soto splits. When Soto is batting, just give me a second here. You guys know it's a little slow sometimes. Also have my contacts in. He hasn't batted anywhere else but second and third. We understand that for Soto, but that's a conversation people keep bringing up. Where should he bat? All right. Might get a little advanced here, but WRC plus, 180 to 134. It's not close. It's almost 35% better than his other average at second. So it makes sense to see this Brandon Nimmo, Juan Soto, again, when you're facing a righty preferably, and have that as your 2 and 3. I think what the Mets are doing 1 through 4 right now, they had Marte batting second tonight. I don't always agree with that, but I do think that Nimmo 2, Soto 3 probably is the Mets' best bet. Just looking at the numbers, right? If you want to get emotional and start making other plays, you could have Nimmo as the 9 hitter. You could bat Nimmo leading off. And obviously 4th and 5th, as we've seen here with the power surge in Brandon Nimmo's career. But overall, I think he's better in the 2-hole. The Mets are going to continue to move these guys around. They're probably not going to touch Lindor at the leadoff spot, even though that's another conversation. And I do think Lindor, it's one of the topics that Ray put up on Metcast, the tweet he sent out, the status of Lindor. He is definitely not playing to the back of his baseball card of late, but that goes for the whole team. It would be wrong of me to call out a guy like Lindor when there's other guys too. Like we could say, Jeff McNeil, Tyrone Taylor, Alvarez is in AAA. We could pick apart the whole lineup. But I think in totality, keeping it as it is for now is probably the best bet. But eventually, I think moving Lindor to the 3, moving him, maybe getting him an at-bat at 2 or 3 or 4. These are all things to consider as you're trying to construct a lineup. And that's why you can't get on Mendy. This stuff is difficult. I mean, we're just trying to talk about it. We're having a difficult time. So imagine that for the New York Mets. So it hasn't been pretty with these splits. The season as a whole for the Mets has not been pretty. Some of these numbers are not going to be really that great, but just going down. I mean, it's basic numbers here, but 258, 291. You want to look at OPS? Soto, 901, 921 for Pete, and then it just falls off. And Ray and I have done a great job, going over this, but you really look at it as we're approaching the first half of the season being over. If you want the honest truth, the first half of the season is over. The trade deadline does not mark the halfway point of the season, nor does the All-Star game. Mets played game 81 last week. So you can really look at this and say, all right, what are we dealing with? What do we need to address? And we are going to address that in this live. There's definitely a couple positions, couple names, and we'll circle back to that, along with the Metcast trivia. So stick around, and of course, we'll have you here. And one more thing, too, unrelated, is before we get back to the Mets, and this is more of a personal thing, shout out WFAN. I know people don't care about talk radio, and some of us really do, which is great. 38th anniversary or birthday. So WFAN turns 38 years old today. Shout out, all the great shows continue to bring us some great content. Love Evan and Tiki, love BT and Sal, love Boomer and Gio. Those are the three right now for me. But of course, Keith McPherson, know him on a personal level, really do love what he's doing. And I think he would get an afternoon drive slot in the future. Chris McMonagle on the overnight, had him on Metcast, had BT on Metcast, of course. So just shout out to those guys. Really soft spot for WFAN. I think a lot of people don't appreciate radio because they, one, the attention spans, right, just out the window. But two, there's other places to find news. That's just the way of the world we live in, and I get it. I definitely do. So, just shout out to WFAN. I want to give that quick note there. But let's get back to the Mets, because these numbers are not great. These numbers are not going to make you get out of bed in the morning and say, this team's a World Series winning team. You have Jeff McNeil, still above an 800 OPS. You're sitting here thinking, all right, things should be looking up. If Jeff McNeil's hitting, the rest of the team should be hitting, right? Not the case. Mauricio, 676. Not a big sample size as he's returned to the big leagues, only 20 games under his belt. But you'd like to see a little bit more. Can't hit anything but a fastball. And I'll save you guys with those splits. But, he has had trouble. And a guy like Vientos, who reversely could only hit the fastball last year, and now they're throwing him the breaking ball, and he can't really adjust either. So I think the Mets are just dealing with a big, big slump. That's it, a team-wide slump. And you heard Mendy before the game talking. We could play it. I just don't know with certain copyright stuff. I don't want to get Ray, throw him under the bus here with SNY, but he was talking before the game, and he was saying it was just, again, overall, this team needs to play better. There's no other way of cutting it. So you're going to get the reinforcements back. These numbers hopefully look a little bit better in the future. But right now, they don't look great. It's not really anybody you could pick from this list besides the top three and say, yeah, this guy is making a difference for the Mets on a given basis. You're just not seeing it. So a couple more notes from Mendy before the game today, too. Just want to make sure I hit these for you guys. Number one thing, Manaea pitched today for the Mets. Still taking it day by day with him. He is pitching today. We'll see how, we get some news maybe tonight on him as you get him updated, get him ramped up. And hopefully back in this rotation. Manaea is a big, big loss. As big of a loss Minter was in the bullpen, I think Manaea is as equal of a loss because you don't have that horse in a way. A 2 or a 3. I don't think the Mets really have a bona fide ace at this point. You can make the case, of course, for Senga and Manaea when they're on their games individually, but I think in totality, a lot of 2s and 3s, and that's enough to get you over the hump, but that's why you need Manaea back. He's good. That arm slot, I do think it's for real, but he's not doing much for the Mets on the bench. So that's the reality with him. He did throw today. Jesse Winker, he's playing today. He's playing tomorrow for AAA Syracuse, and then he's going to get a day off. They have an off day built in, and then they have a back-to-back this weekend. So Winker's going to continue to play, Hopefully just keep monitoring that, hoping that he progresses well. And he should be back with the team, you would hope, in about a week. But still up in the air on that. They're just trying to get him some time. Senga, he faced hitters Sunday, so yesterday, 2 days ago now. Faced batters through a bullpen tomorrow. So he had a day off yesterday, had a day off today. He'll throw a bullpen tomorrow. And there's still a chance that he does get a rehab assignment. It's still up in the air at this point. The Mets don't know. You would hope that he doesn't have to go through a whole rehab assignment and a process. But if they feel that he's not ready, that might be the next step for Kodai Senga to get him back. And that's the problem with Kodai Senga, right? It takes him so long to get on a mound and getting him ramped up. And you need the 6 days rest and a 6-man rotation, 5 days rest. It's a struggle, and I expect it to continue. But unfortunately for Kodai Senga, I don't see this, being a speedy recovery for him. It might be until August. So you just keep a positive note. First day of July now. So if we get to see Senga back in July, that's a win at this point, I'd say. But could be wrong. Don't hold me to that. If he works quicker, and we'll see him back. That's the goal. And that's news and notes for the Mets. Nothing too crazy. Also threw a tweet out with Diaz, just giving him some appreciation this year. Mets haven't needed Edwin Diaz much, which we know as of late, but a 1.99 ERA. He's been solid, sub 2 and 31 in the thirds innings pitched, 12 walks, 46 Ks. He's 16 saves to 17 opportunities, and he has a whip under 1 at 0.95. So Diaz, solid stuff. Just want to throw that in there because it is one of these developing conversations with the opt-out at the end of the year. And the Mets also added a changeup to his arsenal, was tweaking around with that. I saw a nice article there from Puma. So good stuff, all good stuff. Just wanted to get those notes out of the way. We'll get to the trade deadline stuff in a second. We will get to Met trivia in a second as well. Just want to get back to some of these conversations. Some of these great conversations. Let's get back to it. Appreciate everybody being in here. Just threw a live up there. Didn't expect much, but definitely some good stuff in these comment sections. LOL, we can't beat the Pirates. Imagine the Brewers. I know, Emmanuel. I know. How can you expect to win any game if you can't beat the Pirates, right? No, let alone the Brewers. I hear you on that. And then you got the Yankees coming up. It's going to be a tough stretch for the Mets, no doubt about it. Let's go to Mr. Bisk. Did I hear Senga setback? I'd argue that forces Stearns' hand to go after a new starter at the deadline. Either way, dying to get Bonilla back. That's it. There is a lot of pressure on David Stearns. There is a lot of pressure on him this deadline because he has to determine what is the most glaring problem that the New York Mets have. We could name 5 right off the top of the head. The catcher, you can make a case. Third base, you can make a case. Make a case for center field. Make a case for a starting pitcher. Make a case for a bullpen arm, preferably lefty. Right? 5 things right there that I just named that the Mets can go address. It's on David Stearns to address those things, but he can't address them all. That's just the reality of the situation. He can't. If he does, God bless him, but Cohen's probably cutting a few checks and spending a little bit more money than he needs to. You have the internal options, but you have to determine if you're Stearns, what is the position that you're targeting and what's the position you're going to be aggressive. I would think it's the bullpen because that's where the most of these, arms are. But if you told me it's third base, sure. Absolutely. Go and get Suarez from the Diamondbacks. Go and get Ryan McMahon from the Rockies. Go and trade for Jose Ramirez, a future Hall of Famer. We were talking about that in our spaces before. Jonathan, shout out to him. Jose Ramirez. Don't think the Guardians would, let go of a guy like that. They'd be really out of their mind not to or to do that. But if you're the Mets and you could put up a decent trade package, anything's possible. So, you do have to go out and address these things. Stearns, your hand is being forced. You're 100% right, Mr. Bisk. A lot of these setbacks, a lot of these injuries, they just make the situation worse. So if you're Stearns, you got your work cut out for you at the deadline, no doubt about it. Emmanuel, need to blame the whole team. It's what it feels like, man. It's what it feels like at this point. Blame the whole team. That's all you can do. At this point, you're right. Because if we were to place blame on one specific thing, you're just leaving out a whole subset of injuries and problems and mistakes that have cost the Mets games. So it's not just the hitting, it's not just the pitching, it is the whole team. 100%. Emmanuel Nelson, good old Nelson checking in. Thank you. Hello, Dan, and all Mets fans. That's where we're at. All Mets fans just, we're waiting. Hopefully we get a win soon enough. Wouldn't that be something? I think the Mets overpaid for Manaea. They could have done that. I mean, 3 years at 33, I believe. Rough numbers there. Could be wrong. It's a 3-year window. You could say that was an overpay. I think it was more with the age with Manaea. It was kind of shocking that they brought him back at age 32. What were we told in the offseason? What was Stearns' philosophy that he would never go and get a pitcher above the age of 30? Ruled out Corbin Burns. It's ruled out DeGrom. It's ruled out all these guys. But then he brings back Sean Manaea. So it is a little head scratcher, no doubt. I don't think they overpaid, but they might have overplayed their hand with Sean Manaea, maybe buying in too much to last year. It's certainly possible. If I was doing it and a lot of fans were doing it, odds are maybe the Mets made a mistake and overlooked, certain things in Manaea's game. You never know. But I hope that's not the case. I do believe in Sean Manaea with the arm slot over the course of a full season. Lounge. I have one positive spin. The runners in scoring position issue is mostly bad luck, and Stearns is right. It will regress to the mean, looking at stats and looking at home runs per fly ball, etc. Right? I mean, those are the real stats if you really want to get into it, and we're being honest here. I mean, runners in scoring position is just a flawed stat. It is. And I hope this isn't a wake-up call to a lot of people. People that complain about runners in scoring position, a lot of it is just luck. This has been a big conversation in baseball circles, like what determines runners in scoring position? I can't increase Soto's average with runners in scoring position because he has to be up with runners in scoring position. Now, if you want to increase the amount of times a batter is up at the plate with runners on, you get a better offense. That's how you solve that. But in general, runners in scoring position is more of a luck stat than anything else. So I hear you on that. I do. It's mostly bad luck because that's all runners in scoring position mostly is, good or bad luck, depending if you hit. Want to get to this timeout? Thank you, Battlefield. Thank you. I know Ray definitely appreciates that. Bets Mets podcast, hand down. Shout out. Thank you, both of you. That's, high praise. Thank you. It's not easy. Love this stuff. Truly do. And just love the Mets and love engaging with you guys at the end of the day. It's really, it's a joy and it's a blessing. So definitely thank you, Battlefield, truthfully. A lot of good Mets pages out there, a lot of good people in the space, but we appreciate that you choose us as your podcast. But can we talk trade? Realistic guys to get. There'll be a few teams willing to trade. Let's talk trades, right? Have some names here. Have some teams here that I want to discuss, throw at you guys. Maybe we get some conversations going, names that move the needle, names that don't. And a good amount of names we have brought up. I'm adding to this list as time goes on, as certain players, obviously like a Hobie Milner, comes to mind, 34-year-old with the Brewers. He's been playing great and pitching well. But, certain things, you put guys on the list, you take them off, you have different opinions every day. Kyle Finnegan remains a name on my list. Kyle Finnegan feels like Tyler Clippard in 2015. And maybe it's the Nats connection. Maybe it's some of the long hair. Maybe it's the glasses here and there. But at the end of the day, Kyle Finnegan is a really good arm. And he's a guy that, people look at him and say, oh, he's the closer on the Nationals. How good is he really? If you're the closer on any big league team, I can delegate you on a better team to the 8th inning. See how that works? I don't need you to be Edwin Diaz on the New York Mets. We have an Edwin Diaz. If you can bring in a Kyle Finnegan, that changes a lot for this team. I think that would be one of the arms I would consider. A lot of them, though, if we're being honest. The names just continue. I think Chapman comes to mind, sticking in the lane of the bullpen here. Chapman, Aroldis Chapman. He signed a $10 million one-year deal with the Red Sox. It feels like he would want closing opportunities, but that remains to be seen. If I can get my hands on an Aroldis Chapman, I get he's over the hill, but that's an arm that definitely entices me in terms of the bullpen. You want to stick in the lefty department too with the Guardians. Danny Coulomb, another older arm, but definitely someone on the lefty side. You could definitely get in this pen. But sticking with the bullpen now, focus more on the righties again. David Bednar continues to be a name floated around the Mets for a couple years. It feels like you were seeing stuff with Bednar back in 23, and linking him with the Mets. So I do think that's an arm that the Mets can consider. We just saw the Pirates, obviously. Bednar is definitely an arm I would highly consider if possible. But that's the thing. These teams could be wanting here, and the Mets are appraising Bednar here. That middle ground, you don't want to get fleeced. So that's the bottom line. Merrill Kelly comes to mind too. You're just throwing him in the mix. There's definitely bullpen arms. If you really want to go above and beyond, Johan Duran, Emmanuel Clase. There are Ryan Helsley of the Cardinals, Jake Bird of the Rockies. These are relief arms that I'd be considering if I'm a Mets fan right now, because they do need bullpen. They do, and a lot of teams are going to need bullpen. That's usually how the trade deadline goes for the most part. A lot of these relievers move around, but this especially, you need to really fix what has been a injury-ridden bullpen too for the Mets. So, and then some starting pitching arms. I will get to the trades in a second. I do think that, guys like Edward Cabrera, if you want to work out something with the Marlins, that makes a lot of sense. Of course, Sandy's the top target coming out of Miami this deadline, but Edward Cabrera makes a lot of sense. A little bit of a control issue, but I do think the lab, that's what it's good for, refining pitches, helping with walk rates and helping with guys' confidence. I think Edward Cabrera could use that bump to bump himself up from maybe a 3 or a 4 in this league to more of a dignified 2. I do think that he could be somebody that the Mets could bring in. Freddie Peralta, as we mentioned, definitely comes to mind. Seth Lugo comes to mind. But we could go through a million different names in the pitching department. I think that's where the Mets need to live. They got to go and get an arm or two if possible. There's not going to be that big bat. Just the reality of the situation. Like Bregman, he's not going to really be available. Suarez would probably be the best bat to go get. If you're asking me, I don't think Suarez is really that home run or bust kind of guy. He's a good bat. He's been solid, but I don't think he's, worth moving mountains to go and acquire. So those are my rough list of names, trade targets, teams to consider. Any of these teams are trade targets, right? You heard the D-backs, their GM's getting calls constantly. Sat down with John Heyman, Joel Sherman, great stuff. Names escaping me at this point, but GM he sat down and basically saying, at one point it was just the idea that, hey, we could make these trades. We could get teams that are considering, the Diamondbacks with Merrill Kelly and Brandon Pfaadt. You have, of course, Suarez, but Zach Gallen. So there's a lot of interesting pieces that the D-backs are dealing with. And that's kind of what they're really, there's a lot of teams. The Giants come to mind. The Padres maybe not the Giants. Padres come to mind. They could be a team that if they want to get a better return for, it's tough to tell, right? Because Michael King, Dylan Cease. These are going to be names that are going to be thrown around the league next year. It's just the reality. I think a lot of teams you're looking at, of course, the lowly teams you could trade for. We've mentioned a couple names from the Rockies, a couple names, White Sox, you want to go out and steal some of their talent. But it's tough to tell at this point who really is going to be a buyer, who really is going to be a seller. Most teams are able to be traded with because smart GMs know when to call, who to call about, and when to strike when the iron's hot and flip certain prospects at a right time. Mike Hazen, that was the name of the D-backs executive. So great stuff there. Let's keep the comments moving along, guys. Thank you, of course, for being here, spending time with me. Mets ain't doing too well when it comes to the stats. Mets just can't score runs and pitch. That's been the name of the game right now. They can't score runs and they cannot pitch. Soto's been red hot in June. I'm happy you mentioned that. I am very happy you mentioned that because the New York Mets today posted, throw it up right here, boom, 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 switch over, here we are. Juan Soto's numbers for the month of June. This is some crazy stuff. This is some $800 million stuff, and no joke about that. 29 hits, 25 runs, 11 home runs. First in the National League for Juan Soto in the month of June. 20 RBIs, 25 walks. Also good for the best in the National League. 322 batting average, 474 on base, 722 slugging, 1196 on OPS, best in the National League. Same thing with his F-WAR, 1.7. So Juan Soto has been red hot for June. You are not lying. And, well, excuse me. Mets. There you go. I think I already did like it. Whatever. Get an extra like. Anyway, Soto has been red hot in June. He has not been the reason the Mets are losing these games. I think a lot of Mets fans thought, Juan Soto will be making 3 hours a week, and that's the reason they'll lose games. It's not the case, right? He's actually been the one showing up and playing a decent right field. Again, not perfect, not going to be Roberto Clemente, but he's sustainable. And with the offense, it goes without saying. He has been on a otherworldly tear for the month of June, Emmanuel, no doubt about it. So good stuff there from the Mets and Juan Soto. All right, back here. Don't we have AI telling Mendy our optimal lineups? I'd hope not, right? I hope that it is coming from above in some sense because it does give you, you don't want to be too data-driven, but you'd like to know that Stearns is involved somewhat with what's going on. I don't think it is a 2023 situation where Buck's being force-fed Daniel Vogelback fifth in the lineup. I don't think that's the case, but you are getting lineups from above. And I don't think it's as glaring of an issue, but Mendy needs to make changes, and we've seen changes to the lineup over the course of this season. Started off the year Soto 2 and Pete 3. Yeah, and we saw very quickly that probably wouldn't be the best course of action. They moved Soto down to 3. They moved Pete to 4. And things start clicking. Move Nimmo back to 2. So these lineups are just weird some days. I agree. I don't want to be force-fed Marte in the 2-hole. I don't want to be force-fed Jared Young DHing and batting 5th or 6th. But sometimes these are things that I don't even have an explanation for. You just kind of have to deal with when David Stearns knows what he's doing. And as of right now, that's what we have to trust that he does. And I think he does. I'm not going to sit here and make this a David Stearns crap session. Leo, we have to send our team to Dagestan in the offseason for 3 months and forget. Listen, I hear you, Leo. I do. It feels like at that point where you just want to send the Mets away. Wake me up when it's October. These games, I shouldn't be losing to the Pirates. Shouldn't be losing. I get it. But that's why you have to turn the season around. You hope that it would have happened tonight. Mets obviously don't play. For anybody who's wondering why we're talking at 8:24 as a first pitch should have been an hour ago. But yes, the Mets got rained out against the Brewers. Again, they'll have a split doubleheader tomorrow. So different admissions. You're going to have to get to the ballpark at different times. It will not be a single admission. 1:10, 7:10 p.m. tomorrow for the Mets. But we'll see. I hear you about the whole Dagestan, sending them away. I get it. Hebrew Hammer. We all know what the problem is. And I know why you won't say it. Because it's the truth. But it's the truth. It's not the personnel, Hebrew Hammer says. Okay. And Hebrew follows up here. And what's more pathetic is that not one podcast that will actually cover the topic needs to be discussed. And Hebrew here. Perhaps now that it is removed because it is July, maybe God will allow them to win again. Hebrew, I want to go back to your first point here, right? And I do want to address it because I think it's important to address things that people think is not being talked about enough. You say here that the problem is not the personnel. So I assume you're saying it's the players. And I agree. We went over a little bit before with the stats and stuff, but the stats aren't always going to tell you everything. This team is just not clutch. This team is not having that big moment week in and week out. Usually you'd expect the next guy up mentality. That's what 2024 was all about. If it's not Lindor's night, it'll be Pete's night. It's not Pete's night, it'll be Nimmo's night. And you pass the baton along. You would hope that you would get games from Brett Beatty. You would hope that you would get games from Luis Torrens. You're just not seeing that production throughout the whole lineup right now. It is the players. This is not a personnel issue. And I've said many times on this podcast, I don't call out for people's jobs. That's be wrong of me to do. And at this point in my career in life, that is very dumb of me to do. So you're not going to hear that from me. But I will always entertain the conversation. I will always leave the door open for a Chavez conversation, because those are things that can be changed over time. The players are here, right? Lindor's not going anywhere. Nimmo's not going anywhere. Pete's not, well, for now, not going anywhere. So I think it goes both ways. You can obviously change the players at any given moment. It's tougher to change the personnel, but you have to know when you're changing the personnel, you're doing the right thing. And bringing out a Buck, bringing in Mendy, out with Sandy Alderson, in with David Stearns, out with Jeff Wilpon, in with Steve Cohen. So these are all things that over time, I agree with you. It's not the personnel, but the players need to play better. That's the bottom line. I can't give you anything more than that. I'm sorry. But it's true. You're definitely right on that. What's up, brother? Yes, sir. Nelson and Battlefield. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Everybody, always nice to see some convos going on within the convo. Do you agree with what I'm saying, Battlefield? I'm not going to follow this conversation here. It's not the talent. It's not the personnel. Well, then I don't know. Hebrew will have this. We'll have this dialogue here. Why aren't they bringing up more minor league arms to fill the gap? Okay. I do think a development part of this, and I think you were alluding to that as well, a lot of this is development. Like, there's no denying the Mets haven't had a really good prospect that they've developed homegrown since Pete Alonso. Like, Brett Beatty, no. Matt Allen, no. David Peterson, no. Dom Smith, no. Ahmed Rosario, no. I'm getting like Ray here. I'm getting out of my comfort zone. No, Ahmed Rosario did not work out with the Mets. So these are all things. I think prospect development is definitely a problem. Now, it's not a glaring issue because the Mets have drafted well. They do the right things. And I do think internationally they're swinging very big. Forget the domestic draft here in the United States. Internationally, the Mets have been doing great in the international regard. Elian Pena this past year, Davison Gutierrez, Johan Hernandez, Ronnie Mauricio, Francisco Alvarez. You can make the case Ahmed Rosario too. But overall, I think the international development has been very good. Light years, you could say, even above some of these guys that they've been developing. But overall, I hear you. It's not so much the talent. The talent is for real. The big contracts that we talk about with the Mets, who aren't going anywhere, they are very good players, amongst the best in the game. But right now, the prospects who should be amongst the best of the prospects, we think about Francisco Alvarez, number one guy in baseball. But over time seems to have regressed to the point where he doesn't even look like he belongs in the big leagues, and to the point when he is removed from the big leagues. So it's something to consider. I don't know if you were going with that totally, but I rule out personnel. I rule out the talent. I do think it falls maybe on these prospects, and you're alluding to it there as well. Mark, 100%. Minor league arms to fill the gap. Saul Pintaro called up. He's up there on the 40-man. There's Hagenmans of the world. There's the Blade Tidwells. I know you're pleading for the Jonah Tong, maybe not you specifically, but I have seen enough Jonah Tong conversation around Met circles at this point. People want him called up. I get it, but not yet. And it's just, you have to be patient, right? And hope that some of these minor league arms that they call up work. If not, you're going to need new arms. That's the reality. So and eventually signing them maybe to major league deals, as we saw with Richard Lovelady this past week. So it's just a matter of patience. You are running out of time. I get you on that. It's about to be July 4th weekend, and the trade deadline's about to be upon us. The MLB draft is in 2 weeks. So things are changing. Things are moving. And we'll have a little bit more clarity on these minor league arms, trade deadline stuff, and trade suitors for the New York Mets over these coming weeks. I know those are big questions. Right now you have an idea, but you just don't have the full picture, and nobody does. This isn't breaking news. Like, it's tough to tell. Metcast called it out. Ray, I assume you're talking about. Always say they are a Christian podcast. I think they even called for a Christian day on their X account. Yeah, I think Ray threw something out there in regards to the whole Christian Day stuff. I know it's a hot button thing, and I try to stay away from the politics here, but I do subscribe. Yes, my affiliation 100%. But I'm not gonna. That's not what we do here, right? Force stuff on people. To each his own. Whoever you want to marry, whatever you want to do. That's not for us to tell you what to do. Even though, internally people have their opinions. So I get it. I definitely get it. But yes, we do. We do conform. Yes, to that. The Christian views. Yes, we do. They did call it out. I've never heard them say a word about it. Are you sure? Yeah, I think with the prospects and stuff and Chavez, yeah, it's tough. They're never going to come out and say, "Oh yeah, Chavez needs to play better." We heard the Andy Martino reporting this week. He was talking about, basically the Mets. He probably made a call to David Stearns, is the best guess, and said, "Hey, is so and so talking about Chavez going to be a conversation to be fired?" And the answer clearly from Martino's reporting was no. So I take that two ways. They haven't had the conversations, but they are having the conversations at the same time. Because you got to think about it. If Stearns is being asked the question from Martino or whoever asked and got an answer back to him, the question's been planted within the Mets organization that Chavez is a problem. Or to some people, some fans, you could say he's a problem. Internally, they might not feel that way, but in 2 weeks from now, if something like this down stretch of games continues, that conversation will be brought up again. I equate it very similar to with what the Knicks were dealing with. I think either Leon Rose or James Dolan, whoever you want to, say proposed the idea to get rid of Thibs. That idea was probably presented to Leon Rose, I would assume, from Dolan at one point. Leon probably brushed it off and said, "No way, Thibodeau's the guy." And then a couple months later, as things happen, you lose. Maybe those conversations come up again, and we saw Thibs relieved of his duties. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's something to think about now that the conversation and the narrative has been started. And shout out Easy Ethan, too, on this app. He's just, always joins my spaces, appreciate his stuff. Funny enough, Chavez clapped back at him. He went to Instagram stories to go make a response to what Ethan was saying on Twitter. So, that could be a problem in and of itself. If you're Chavez, why are you interacting with that stuff? You're above it. But also, it speaks to how powerful X is. I think we often kind of lose sight of that, and myself included. Like, you can really drive certain narratives, not for clicks. You can drive that stuff for clicks. I could say breaking news, the Mets are signing Jacob deGrom, probably get 1 million views and a couple likes. That's not what I'm here to do, right? It'd be fake, yes, but a lot of people do subscribe more to the engagement plays and stuff like that. You gotta be smarter. And if you're Chavez, again, you can't be doing that. You just can't. But you can drive narratives on this app and definitely get conversations going. So shout out to Ethan as well if you're listening. Good stuff. Battlefield. Maybe not on a live, but I saw them on Pride Night repost the Jesus shirts and call for a Christian night. It was very blatant, I think. Yeah, I hear you on that, Battlefield. I do. And again, that's not my position. I get both sides of it. I don't think the Mets are losing games because they showed a Pride Night flag on a scoreboard, right? That wouldn't really equate to anything in a baseball season. So at the end of the day, I get what you're saying. I appreciate, you bringing up the conversation too. It's always, love these types of conversations, no doubt. But, again, at the end of the day, just try to stick to baseball. That's what I love. And hopefully that's what all of you love at home too, with a little bit of outside sports, Giants, love my New York Giants, love my New York Knicks, love my Big East Conference, love my St. John's, love Villanova, Providence. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's we try to keep it baseball here. Dan, you are too smart not to see what the real problem has been. It's not even rational what has happened since that day. Look at their record, look at all the injuries, look at all the poor performances since that day. I know, and you say it here too, no other podcast has addressed it. I get it. And usually a lot of those podcasts have people telling them what to say, whether it be sponsors, whether it be just certain stuff that they're sticking to in a show sheet. Again, I'm open to any of this stuff, these conversations. I'm just going down the comments. Usually Ray has it all situated in terms of what we talk about beforehand. But yeah, I get it. It feels like, too good to be true, right? Something happens, and then all of a sudden the Mets go, 3-13 over their next 15? I have no explanation for it. Steve Cohen has definitely heard the noise about it. The amount of people that I've seen going at him, just, saying, I'm not going to a game again, or I'm not going to waste my time watching the Mets. He's definitely heard the criticism. And all I can really say to that is, again, it's just a part of life that we live in now. I don't even, it's the world we live in. You just have to learn to adjust. I hear you though. Remember we posted that guy saying, they called it out for sure. Yeah, the guy, twerking and stuff. I get it. I do. It's out of my pay grade, guys. It's, really think the Guardians will be selling. This is what we're talking about. Baseball. Ramirez is signed through 28. Listen, Jose Ramirez, he is quietly, yes, signed through 28. I believe he signed a 7-year for 141 for his contract. He's making 22 this year. He's making 23, and then I believe 25 in 2028. So it's going up about $2 million each year. He is quietly one of the best bats in this game. He has the connection to Francisco Lindor. He played his days with the Guardians. Ramirez comes up in 13. Him and a young Lindor go to the World Series in 2016. So they have a connection. That'd be a pretty sweet left side of the infield. It beats Mark Vientos and Francisco Lindor. It beats Brett Beatty, Ronnie Mauricio, and Francisco Lindor. You go get a Jose Ramirez, this changes a lot. In the same way I feel about Bregman, how he can make this team a World Series contender like that, it's the same thing with a guy like Jose Ramirez. You ask any big league player, there's these two guys, the name escaping me, they do those interviews with the players on the field, and they ask them who's the most underrated player in the game. Almost everybody said Jose Ramirez. So he's a guy that gets his recognition. He's still pretty young, 32. So that's something to definitely consider. Definitely consider. No way they move Ramirez. They idolize him. I agree with that too. At the end of the day, I don't think the Guardians would. We heard the conversation they'd be open, and I think that was in this past off season. Might have been early this year as well. And then they kind of shut it down, closed off all talks. I'd imagine that's where they're at this point right now too. It would be a really good get for the Mets to get, but a really tough get to get. They should be calling it out, though. You know what I'm saying, bro? They of all podcasts, they don't need to have the guts. Some of them may not have the acumen. I hear you. And, me as a man, the way I was raised and the way a lot of other people have been raised, you don't duck from smoke. You don't run away from trouble. You run at things head on. Problems in life, uncomfortable conversations like the Mets are dealing with. Yeah, I get it. Like, I believe in things. You believe in things. We all want to believe in the Mets, right? At the end of the day, we want the best for the New York Mets. And this is something to some people, of course, has been an issue. And I'm not going to chalk it up. Again, this is not the reason why the Mets are losing games because they had a pride night. But it is a conversation. You're alienating some portion of your fans. That's just the reality. But it goes both ways. I'm not here to preach to people. I just want to talk baseball, but it is a conversation, especially dealing with the New York Mets. It picked up a lot of national conversations. At the end of the day, the Gays had their month. Love it. Shout out to them. June was good. But, it's July and, you turn the page. But again, I'm not here to comment on this. It's just, again, out of my pay grade. The thought of a doubleheader tomorrow, I'm scared. Yeah, I get it. Right? You could lose 2 games in one day if you're the New York Mets. But you could also win 2 games in one day. So I think best case scenario is a split. That's just the way the Mets have been playing. It feels like best case scenario tomorrow would be a split. If they get swept, this is going to be a rough time. A rough time for the Mets. So, again, it's just crazy, guys. This is where we're at. I agree, Joey LOL, but Mets, maybe we sweep. I'd love to sweep the Brewers. It'd be goal number 1 at this point, if you really asked in the short term. Just keep stacking wins. That's all you can do if you're the Mets. You're at a point in the season where it's just gotten so bad that anything above this is a success. So it feels crazy when you were hitting 7 solo home runs just a week and a half ago and winning 11-4. You're not getting that offense consistently. And that's the reality of the situation. So, again, nothing will change until it changes. YouTube user, I love Locked On Ryan. He's so sweet and ball smart. Yes, I believe Ryan Finkelstein you're talking about. Yeah, Locked On Mets, good stuff over there. Again, I'm not in the business of crapping on competitors, right? And I've been crapped on a lot by a lot of my competitors in this space. I get it. But you just have to stay positive and stay happy, as best as you can. But Ryan, yeah, shout out to him. Does a lot of good stuff, no doubt. Hebrew, I think Metcast only to call out. Subway Series people can't dwell on it. Yeah, I'll leave those conversations to you guys in the comments. Trade the work ideology. That's what you need to trade, right? I hear you. It does feel like internally there are some things that are flawed with the Mets from how they approach the game of baseball, right? You guys get a couple strikes on them and they look lost in at-bats. I don't think Chavez can get up there and swing for these guys. We all know that. But maybe having a better prepared approach, whether it be for certain pitchers or whether it be for certain games, I think that would help these guys. But it's tough in the moment. We see them on the SNY broadcast in between innings, in between at-bats. These guys are on the iPads all the time. You see that in the NFL. Every single possession, it feels like. Mahomes after a timeout, or I guess it'll be Russell Wilson now for the Giants. Look at that. He'll be looking at the iPad. And it's just the technology we live in and stuff, right? But maybe it is a workflow thing. Maybe it is certain ideologies with how this team goes about it. Yeah, Hebrew, I'll leave that to you. Of course, brother. With Alcantara not having the best season, do you believe the Marlins keep him now? I think there's going to be a lot of teams in on Sandy, and I think that the Marlins are going to trade him at this deadline. We've heard from multiple credited reporters. JP Morosi of MLB Network definitely said that before the season began. He was saying how Sandy's definitely going to be traded before the deadline. And you just hear more stuff trickle in about Sandy. John Heyman last week on his live stream talked about Sandy. A lot of teams very interested. I don't know if they've went to the lengths where they've made calls to Miami, but you would have to think at this point that they have. Now that we're into July, Sandy's going to be wanted by a lot of teams. I would expect the Cubs to be very in on him. I'd expect the Yankees, as funny as it is, to maybe throw an offer out there for him. But I do think the Cubs are going to be a top suitor for Sandy at the deadline, and then throw the Mets into the equation, of course. But you can never count out teams like the Giants, always willing to throw money at people. Any team in the NL West at this point, given that it's really going to be a tight race over there, but the Padres too, you never know. So just names to definitely consider. Nobody wants to imagine Sandy on the Dodgers. I hear you on that. But there's going to be a lot of teams A lot of teams in on Sandy at the deadline, no doubt. No doubt about it. Let's keep this moving along, guys. Appreciate everybody in here tonight. It's one of those spaces, one of those times we're just looking for positivity and trying to provide it here at Metcast. Aside from all the political stuff, Mendoza does not know how to build a lineup. Moves people in and out on a daily basis. There is no continuity. This is a very good point. And I know I'm falling behind on the comments. I'm trying to get to every comment. It's a slow burn out here. They're piling up. But listen, Hebrew, Mendy has shown trust. He's shown ability to trust guys, put them in lineups in certain situations. He trusts the stars, to be able to move, Soto from 2 to 3 wasn't an easy decision, right? Because that's an $800 million guy. You have the stat guys in your ear if you're Mendy saying, hey, you got to bat him second. He needs the most amount of bats in a game humanly possible. These are things that he was juggling. And then you see the bottom half of this lineup too. Constantly moving Marte up and down, McNeil up and down. You haven't had that continuity that you're talking about, but I do think to a way it kind of helps the Mets. Hasn't to this point. They haven't won games, but the ability to move guys up and down a lineup. Yes, I want the 1 through 9 the same every single day if possible, but having that ability, getting a feel for who's hot, who's not, I do think Mendy has a good gauge on that. We saw that last year in the playoffs. I always bring this up. NLCS goes under the radar. Winker, I believe it was game 3. Might have been game 4. Game 4. I was at game 3. Funny enough, great game. Not really, but, it was a nice environment. First game back, NLCS at Citi Field. Game 4, Winker's in the game, hits a ball. He's pinch hitting, has the bases loaded, hits it out to right field, right in front of the Cadillac Club, misses a grand slam. And people were saying that night, got to put Winker in the game. Got to do it. He's making good contact. Gets in the game the next day. So those are things. We've talked about Alvarez in the NLCS too last year. I think Mendy really stuck to his approach. And again, bat flies out of Alvarez's hand. It's a very cold night, that first game at home, that game 3 in the NLCS. He looks a mess. He looks a mess behind the plate. He looks a mess at the plate. Francisco Alvarez comes back and gets hits in the next 2 games of that series. So there's always something to be said about having a lineup in place, knowing when to play the hot hand. And I think Mendy does have a gauge on that. But I get you with the continuity, 1 through 9. That's really been the problem. You don't have a stable 1 through 9. You may have a stable 1 through 6. Maybe. At this point, it's really a stable 1 through 4. So that's really been the issue. You can't have continuity if you don't have a continuous lineup. And then you can kind of have the conversation of keeping guys 6, 7 when you have stability. But right now, there's very little stability for the Mets to get that continuity that you're talking about. Hebrew. Plus, they will not call up Nolan, McLean, or Tom. That's the issue too, right? You want to see these guys up. I think McLean will be up before too long. Tong, you just don't want to risk it. He's not going to be up in 2025, guys. I'm not reporting it. I'm not even really saying that that's definitely not. Tong's not going to be up in 2025. That's just the reality. His MLB ETA is 2027. So if he was so far ahead of schedule that the Mets felt, okay, we could get a start from Jonah Tong, that's more of a 2026 thing. Let him break camp in spring training and see what happens there. McLean didn't break camp this spring training. Tidwell did. We saw Tidwell. Sproat did. We have yet to see Sproat. So I do think before Tong it'll be Sproat. But McLean and Sproat, I think McLean could be up before him, as crazy as that sounds. But it's all over the board right now for the Mets. It really is. I couldn't tell you who the next prospect up will be. I've tried to find out for you guys. Nobody really knows at this point. We were saying Drew Gilbert. We look like idiots, I guess, now. But again, you never know. So keep a happy thought. These prospects, once they come up, they're going to have to produce too. And that's been a problem for the Mets. You do not need to go out and trade for a pitcher. Before you go and do that, bring up the kids and see what they have, not Tidwell, who belongs in the bullpen. I hear you. You know I do. I hear you on that. It has to be better. You need these guys to come up and be solid when they're called up. And it's a lot tougher for pitchers. That's why we've seen so many call-ups and call-downs. Call up Mauricio, you kind of keep him up here and see what happens. So it's a little bit of a different juggle. Yes, Ken. Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Bobby Bonilla Day. You got to love it, you know? And before my time, I wasn't born in 2000, but you definitely do your research, and it's just a crazy time. Crazy, crazy time, but special day. How concerned are you that Brazoban is broken? I'm not concerned, but I'm growing concerned, if that makes sense. Like, it's definitely been a topic now for the past couple outings for him. You go back to the 2 clean innings he had last month against Philadelphia, felt like he was turning the corner. Felt like Brazoban was finally at the point where you say, all right, he's in the circle of trust. He's on the older side. He's 34. But I trust him to get me out of situations. Brazoban's looked a mess. He really has. Walking 3 straight guys to begin an outing. You cannot start an outing much worse. Now, 3 solo home runs probably up there. 3 triples back to back to back. That's probably up there. But in terms of the worst possible outcomes that you can get from a reliever, walking the bases loaded is up there. So it's not getting much better for a guy like Brazoban, given the age. He does have the options. I would consider it. Out of guys who do have options on this Mets bullpen, who you want to call up, call down, because that's going to have to happen too with these guys coming off the injured list pretty soon, I'd consider Dednel Nunez and I'd consider Huáscar Brazoban at this point. Jose Budo too could be an option, but I would consider those guys before anybody else. Want to get through a lot of these comments. Do want to get to the Mets trivia too in just a couple of seconds here, but we'll continue these comments as we wrap up, probably around 9 o'clock, guys. Don't want to leave everybody too late. Yes, Mike Hazen. Thank you, Mark. Go look back at the 1998 Yankees, perhaps the greatest team ever. 1927 Yankees say differently, but I definitely hear you on that. Same lineup practically every day, and that's the goal. That is the goal. You want a 1 through 9. You want Lindor, Nimmo, Soto, Alonso, McNeil, Marte, Beatty. You want the 1 through 9. I get it. Definitely do. Happy Bobby Bonilla Day, Ken. Yes, we hit that. Hebrew. Drew Gilbert should be on this team right now, and so should Jet. I get it. I definitely get it. It has to be better. It has to be better. You need guys, and I think a lot of it too, real quick, with Gilbert and Williams specifically, it's the injuries. That's the bottom line. It's the injuries with these guys. Last year, you lost some significant time, and you have to have those difficult conversations when they're back and probably take a little bit more time than you normally would. Want to skip these comments? Hebrew, you did not have to do this. You know that. But I appreciate you, of course, and yes, for being the only podcaster to actually discuss this very sensitive topic. Thank you. Much respect, Dan. About time I got some respect in the Mets community. No, I'm kidding, but it's all good, and I get it. It's a sensitive thing. People don't want to talk about it. People feel uncomfortable about it. You just got to stick to your values in this world. Whatever you believe is the truth, that is your truth. And nobody can take that away from you. So I believe, truthfully, that the Mets might win a World Series in the next couple of years too. Might not happen, but it's something definitely to bring up. But again, always here for you guys, always here for these uncomfortable conversations, things that other people might not talk about. You can always come to us here at Metcast to talk about it, of course. Let's keep these going. I think I jumped past some of these comments. Again, look at Ray. He would jump over these guys. I'm fishing through it like a fisherman out here. This is we'll hit Ken's comment again just to reset. Yes, happy Bobby Bonilla Day. Thank you, Ken, for the 3rd time. Goomba, what's up, guys? Anybody else excited to see Mizorowski in New York tomorrow for the first time? That's a good segue here. Let's bring up Jacob Mizorowski, okay? So this is a player that is very good, and he is a player that is going to give the Mets problems. He is a player that has gotten a lot of respect around the league, and rightfully so. So these are the upcoming, ignore this, it's going to be a makeup, but Freddie Peralta, Clay Holmes, Jacob Mizorowski, Blade Tidwell tomorrow. It's the first game, and then I think TBD for the second. Let's look at Mizorowski real quick, just so you guys kind of see what we're dealing with here. An unprecedented start to his big league career. 3-0, 1.13, 16 innings, 19 Ks with a whip of .63. Now, again, does this continue for a guy like Mizorowski? Probably not. And you would hope that the Mets can rock him similar to how they did with Imanaga last year. Remember, he was rolling. He was striking out the world. And the Mets tag him for, I believe, 10 hits. Might have been like 7 earned runs or something like that. It was his first rough outing of the year. So I think for Mizorowski, this could be something we look at and say, let's get the best of him. This is his 3-game sample size in the big leagues. You're looking at it. He has started versus Pittsburgh, 5 innings, 2 hits, 8 Ks, 6 innings, only allowing a hit and 6 Ks, and then had a perfect or no-hitter through the 5th inning, 4 walks, 5 Ks. This is very good. And this reminds you too, I think of the up-and-coming pitchers that we're expecting to see around the league, more the skinny body guys. And we've seen this for a while. Don't get me wrong, Jacob deGrom exists. But you're seeing it, right? You're seeing the Jonah Tongs coming up the Mets system. You're seeing guys like David Festa, the Seton Hall product who goes to the Twins, this long, lanky guy throwing 96, 97. It really speaks to where the game is going. And I think a lot of these pitching staffs and pitching coaches have really, mastered what it takes to get the velocity out of these guys, to work the hip to shoulder separation, to make sure that everything is in line mechanically. And then all it is just a bunch of squats, a bunch of leg lifts, and making sure your lower half is in tune. And then you can really get the velocity up from these slender type pitchers like a Mizorowski, like a David Festa, and eventually, I think with a Jonah Tong. But definitely a name there, definitely someone to watch. And funny enough, Goomba, you did bring that up. It's going to be a name. It's definitely going to be a name. So let's go back to this. Appreciate you guys too. About 500 people in here. This is awesome. Just chopping it up. So is it Lindor or Soto? LOL, make an actual point, please. I don't know what you're talking about. Might have gone back to the splits, but both players need to play better. Both players, nobody's excused at this point. You'd be an idiot to sit here and start saying players, have reached their peak. Hebrew got to 28-0, but last time they lost 12-1. OMG, Mizorowski going to light it up. LOL, good for him. Yeah, I know. It feels like it. Here we go. 15 Ks maybe. I hope not for Mizorowski. That'd be awful. Lindor, Nimmo, Snags, Diaz all getting older. The window is shrinking, which is why they all needed to go in on this year. Feels like that. You're going to get a lot of teams around baseball going in this year. The Phillies come to mind because their window, again, is a lot closer to being closed than the Mets. You got Schwarber, you got Harper, who just got back in the fold. Your pitching staff definitely getting older with Wheeler and his retirement in 27. So they're dealing with a lot. Definitely dealing with a lot. Why are we not testing Tong and McLean in AAA? That's a good question. For Tong specifically, I can't really speak to why they haven't called him up. I know that it's frustrating. McLean is at AAA. But with Tong, I just don't know. I think, again, it is a part of the whole development. They don't want to rush it. I get with the injuries, but you would go to other guys before Tong, as crazy as that sounds, just to see what you have. And one of them is, of course, Nolan McLean. So he would be up before Tong, no doubt. But I get the frustration. I get the need to want to get these guys up. It is something that the Mets need to kind of figure out. Who is staying on this team moving forward, from the offense to the pitchers. I think they want to keep Tong long term, but If a team calls with Sandy in mind and Tong is a name that the Mets have to give up, what are you doing? So this is a weird period right now for the Mets. They're really trying to identify, as they have for about the past month, what they really have in store. So it's one of those days. It really is. Let's get to the Metcast trivia question, and then we'll get to some of this stuff as we do wrap up. I know I said 9 o'clock, but we'll keep it going here. This is going to be a tough one. Now, I don't look it up, but you might have to at this point for this kind of question. The Mets were allowed to select designated hitters from lists submitted to the league office by all National League teams to fill their rosters. So again, like waivers, the Mets were able to go and select designated hitters to go fill out their roster. With their very first pick, they selected a catcher. Again, with the first pick, Mets could go around, select designated hitters, and they selected a catcher. With their very first pick in the franchise's history, what was his name? And we'll leave it at that. Who was the Mets catcher that they drafted first overall ever with their first pick? And what was his name? Okay, let's keep it moving along. Truman Quinn. Yes, sir. Orange and blue skies, New York. That's it. Applies to the Knicks. Applies to the Mets. I'm sadly not an Islanders fan. I'm from Long Island, which maybe feels sacrilegious, but I do like what the Islanders are doing too. Don't get me wrong. So I'm not a big hockey guy, but it is what it is. Hear me out. Jimmy, shout out Jimmy. Always tunes into the spaces too on X. Might have one of these after this as well. What if this is just a super bad slump? The Pirates have a streak going now, and the Rays are playoff contenders. I think that's really sums up what baseball is all about, Jimmy. Really touched on it because baseball is about slumps. It's about the idea that a team can resurrect themselves like the Mets last year. Nobody had the Mets going to the NLCS in June. You kidding me? They had them in Cancun playing the Colorado Rockies in the NLDS. You really look at it and you say you do need a good run to get back. But that's the game of baseball. These runs happen over the course of a whole season. Sometimes they're a prolonged run and more in the negative sense where it's a slump. And that's what the Mets are running into right now. So, yeah, the Pirates are streaking. Teams like the Rays kind of, in the mix. So it goes back to what baseball is all about. That's all. A game of runs. That's all. Miss me with prospects. Truman, I hear you. I do. Some people don't like the whole prospect jargon. They think it's a waste of time. They think prospects are just suspects until proven otherwise. I hear you 100%. And right now for the Mets, not many prospects have come up and prospered. Going back years now, where, again, the last guy to really develop and be brought through this system and had success at the major league level over the course of multiple seasons is Pete Alonso. So it's something to think about. Mets are a year or two away from swinging huge, YouTube user says. I hear you. I agree that it will be a year or two out. I don't think in my heart of hearts the Mets are going to go out and make these big splashes for a Sandy. They'll be in the conversations for a Suarez, Sandy, Buxton, Bregman. I just don't see it because right now you still need to know what you have with the team. But you can get marginal bats. Absolutely. Go get an Austin Hayes from the Reds. Probably above average bat and a little bit. TJ Friedl from the Reds, if we want to stay in that lane. There's bats out there, definitely, that can move the needle. I agree. Lounge is going to be Blackburn, Montas. Our homegrown for 5 years are garbage. Yes, that has been a big problem for the Mets right now. Look across town to the Yankees too. You can make the same case, but it's been a problem with the Mets too. Definitely has. Let's keep it moving. Yes, sir. I don't want to think about the show, what I was saying, Dan. Remove flag. I hear you. Hebrew is unbearable. I hear you. Where it is. Comments going crazy, guys. Love it. But in 2 years, Senga, Diaz, Pete, all gone. Okay, interesting take here from Goomba. Lindor, 33-34. Nimmo, old. That's the core. Then you're rebuilding. I do think, again, 3-year windows, you're onto something because you signed Clay Holmes to a 3-year deal. You signed Sean Manaea to a 3-year deal. These are things that I look at and say, okay, the Mets are doing this for a reason. Because in 3 years from now, to your point exactly, Lindor is going to be out of his prime. Nimmo out of his prime. And Pete, of course, he's 30 years young this year in December, just turned. He's going to be 33, 34 in 3 to 4 years from now. It's a lot older. So the Mets window, while not as closed as the Phillies at this point, it's a year or two out from being a lot closer to being closed. And you're 100% right about the Senga stuff. He's only getting older. We've talked about the usage of the forkball on Senga's shoulder. He has that capsule stuff going on up there too. That's something that with the forkball, that constant dragging down of the hands, the splitting, it puts pressure on your elbow. Again, I'm no doctor, right? But I played the game. Those forkballs are going to take years off Senga's career. So another guy who on this 3-year trajectory, it lines up to what the Mets are thinking, 3-year windows. You could tell me it's 5 individual 3-year windows with Juan Soto in his 15-year career. I think 3 years is the optimal time to see how these guys come up, develop, and then ship them out if they're not developing. So I hear you on that. Pete, I'm not sure about. Diaz, I could see out. Senga, I could see out. You guys know my big soft spot for Pete. A big soft spot for Pete. I have his jersey about 10 feet away from me. I think he'll be a Met for life. I think he's really comfortable with the Mets organization. Yes, there will be suitors this year. Pete Alonso's having a MVP caliber season, but he's a year older. He's still a right-handed first baseman. You know, I don't know if his market's going to be as we expect it to be, if that makes sense. There'll be teams. Giants will throw money at Pete. The Angels probably throw some money at Pete. The Cubs always seem to be interested in Pete. There'll be a couple teams. But I think the Mets will, A, have the ability to match no matter what. This isn't a DeGrom situation where Pete's looking to get out of town. And the Mets will pay whatever a team is willing to spend. Nobody's dropping $200 million on Alonso. That's the other reality of this situation. Whatever the matching price has to be, the Mets will be able to match it because Pete's market's not going through the roof, even if he wins MVP, as crazy as that sounds. You just have to trust me on that. And I might be wrong, but I really don't think the market for Alonso is going to be as palpable as we think. And it'll be a lot easier for him to return to the Mets. Also because he wants to be a Met. How many times can a person lie to you, right? Over the past 7 years of Pete Alonso's career, 6. Have we looked at it and said he doesn't want to be here? Has he ever given an indication to Mets fans, whether it be in media availability, spring trainings, off seasons, end of games? He coined LFGM. I think he wants to be a Met forever. And I think the Mets are going to give him that opportunity because that's the only thing they said. Pete, they said it last year, go out, have a great season, make it easy on us to bring you back. Clearly, it was a lot tougher. Pete did not have a great year, and it took a lot for him to be back. But is anybody, and again, I'll get to hopefully all of these comments, trying to stifle through it, but I'll do a little bit of a rapid fire in a minute. Throw out your opinion right now. Do you think Pete Alonso will be a Met for life? That's my question to you. I don't know how to do all the fancy polls and stuff like Ray does, but that's my poll. Do you think Pete Alonso will be a Met for life? Yes or no? And we'll get to the trivia question too. I'm like a half an hour behind on some of these comments, so we're going to speed through this and end the night. Mike, the fear of losing PCA again isn't the issue. The fear of losing a PCA once again in a season where there was no way to make the playoffs anyway. True, I can't argue with you there. Peterson, Manaea, McGill, Canning, Blackburn wouldn't be a playoff rotation on the Long Island Ducks. Look at that. Just laying it on, Mike, throwing the Ducks in there. I can't blame you, honestly. Trading PCA for Baez in a season that was doomed because DeGrom was injured yet again was the problem. Go all in if you have the cards to bet. Don't go all in on a bluff to keep ticket sales up when you know they can't win. And that is the question David Stearns will be asking himself. And I always love these cross-sport references. It's not the same thing, but in the same way that Dolan and Leon Rose, the brass of the New York Knicks, looked at Tom Thibodeau, is the same way David Stearns is looking at this Mets team. The Knicks looked at Thibodeau and said, can he take us to the promised land as a coach? Is he the right guy to get it done? The answer was no. Clearly, they let him go. Stearns is looking at this Mets team and saying, can this team get to the top? It's a tough conversation because, a lot of different points have been brought up tonight with these comments. You have the mindset of, hey, Mets aren't going to make a move. And not going to be this year because you still have to wait and see. 2 to 3 years, they'll make that big move. But then you have the mindset of, hey, these guys aren't getting any younger. The window's getting shorter and shorter with the year, and you just got Juan Soto. So you might as well go for it every single year if you can. That's why it's up to the Mets at this point. A lot of it goes back to, do they think they can win with this current construction of talent? I think they do feel that way. They've said that. But to what end? To what end, to where you need to go out and get 2 starters? Or are you okay with just a bullpen arm or 2? Do you go getting Eugenio Suarez, or are you okay with just getting TJ Friedel? So these are all things to consider, definitely, as the season goes on. And this is a big month, big month. We'll try to give you lives every single day as we possibly can. Spaces, check me out on X if you haven't already. I'm constantly trying to keep you guys tuned in because these things change every single day. So YouTube user, shout out YouTube user. It's July. Hebrew grow up flag. Still talking about that. Comments, bad voice crack. I can't stand it. CBH. You grow up. America only. I hear ya. Shout out July 4th too, if we want to just throw that in there. It'll be a nice holiday. Trying to get through this. Here we go. Another Mets-related comment here. Dickie Lovelady, reliever of the year 2026. I bet all my huck to a coin on it. Very funny, Lounge. Very, very funny. That's funny. Yeah, that's the point we're at, right? We're getting, names that you would expect to be a typo are signed, and let alone now to big league contracts. But it speaks to where the Mets are in the left-handed department, doesn't it? It's decrepit at this point. I want to see a team do good. So do I, Goomba. So do I. With that in mind, I don't know if this can be fixed in a season. Really need to see where we are in 2 to 3 weeks when and if Minaya and Senga are back. I think that's the ultimate part of this. Again, patience, right? Nobody knows if the Mets are going to be buying or selling. They could do a little bit of both. They could sell off some loose contracts and bring back another. I really don't know. But right now, that's what all these teams are trying to figure out. Who's buying, who's selling, who's staying in, who's staying out. And a lot of it goes back to the injuries and seeing guys when they're back, how they look. Got a little bit of Montas here. Good first outing, bad second outing. What's Minaya going to look like? What's Senga going to look like? So these are all definitely conversations, definitely. Madeline, hope I'm saying that right. Dan, you are the man. Thanks a million. No game, doubleheader, LFGM. That's it, guys. Just trying to keep you entertained here on this day off night. Mets not playing with the rain, so they'll get a doubleheader tomorrow. Again, 1:10 p.m., 7:10 p.m. tomorrow night. If we're this far out, I don't know if it's worth giving up top prospects to try to fix a mess. It's a lot to fix in a season. Yes, we mentioned it, the 5 different positions that the Mets need to fill. And it's really based on order of priority here. Bullpen, starter, kind of at the top, interchangeable 1A, 1B. 3 would be, make a case for catcher. I'll leave that. Center field. Center field does need to be addressed for the New York Mets, but also catcher because you've gotten no hitting from these guys. Maybe you just call up Alvarez again and that fixes it, which I'm fine with. But it's something to consider because as good as they are defensively, love Hayden Sanger, love Luis Torrens. They just really can't hit at the big league level consistently to be a starting catcher. Or we'll just go and sign James McCann if you want the same level of production at the plate. But I'll leave that up to you guys at home. So we'll see. It's going to be a big 3 weeks. Big 3 weeks. No doubt about it. Hebrew. Mets 10 in a row. You'll believe me about the flag. Listen, I get it about this flag. I do. If I were to tweet something out about that, I'd get crucified. You guys know that. But that's just being in New York and everything with the media. It's tough. But I get it. Yes, I get it. Hamburglar first pitch. Listen, at this point, go and get any McDonald's character to throw out a first pitch at this point. I think they were talking about the green one. I think he's like a distant relative to Grimace. I don't know his name. It's Grady's or something. One of you guys will know in the comments. But he was another McDonald's character in the 70s. And it could be somebody. I'd still throw out Grimace. I'm a little immature in that regard. I'm 23, but I'm still a little kid at heart. I would love to see Grimace throw out a pitch again. That would be some of the coolest stuff ever. But I know most fans have moved on in the same way we've moved on from OMG. I have too, but you kind of could use something to spark this team. So, hey, but shout out Hoda Kotb throwing out a pitch on Women's Night. Hey, you could always tap into the celebrities as well and go and get a Kevin James to throw out a first pitch. Go get Jerry Seinfeld to throw out a first pitch. I mean, we'll see. Tom Hanks apparently is a Mets fan. I don't know. I saw a video of him with a hat on Mets earlier in the year. I was like, were you just at a Dodger game with a Dodger hat on? But, shout out Tom Hanks. But thank you, Madeline. Common sense. Blah, yes, sir. I don't want to, leave that to you guys. Which will come first? Stearns makes a relevant move, Marcus says, or the Knicks hire a head coach. I love the cross-sport references. I love the orange and blue Knicks and Mets. That's right up my alley. I'd like to say Knicks head coach because it kind of is urgent at this point. You can make the case that Stearns bringing in somebody is urgent too, but a relevant move is a little bit of a gray area. Define relevant. I mean, you could definitely make the case that, we go out and add another bullpen piece tomorrow, but I don't know. I'd probably, funny enough, go with the Knicks head coach. I think that happens very soon. We heard Mike Brown, not to get off topic here from the Mets too much, but we are hearing that Mike Brown getting his second interview with the Knicks, getting Dolan in on those interviews as well. So now it's getting a little serious. And Mike Brown, good coaching resume coming over from the Kings. So that'd be somebody I'd definitely be intrigued by. Still like Taylor Jenkins, still like Johnny Bryant, but it doesn't seem like those are going to be the options that the Knicks go with. But you never know. Dawn Staley too getting a interview. So there's names. I just don't know. Jason Kidd would have been the ideal too, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. Hebrew. A lot of fiery comments from Hebrew tonight. Here's another. Chavez needs to go yesterday. Okay, Chavez needs to go yesterday. A lot of people calling for it. Again, a lot of people calling for this, no doubt. It's a black cloud over the team. I moved out of New York because of this stuff. I hear you. I do. Bring Jake home. Talking about someone who might have moved out of New York. The Rangers paid for the Tommy John years. Could be a good way to look at it. Everything you keep hearing about DeGrom keeps getting shot down. John Heyman shot it down the other week. Howie Rose shot it down too. He was on Evan and Tiki the other week. Those are two both notable names that I trust. On the reporting side, of course, with Heyman, but Howie Rose. This was a guy who was talking in the offseason that Pete would be back. And I get broadcasters are more positive by nature in the same way Mendy is positive by nature. They think like players, and you have to. But when you have multiple people saying that he will be back and it ends up happening, and then you kind of hear about the Jake stuff not happening, I'd rule it out at this point, as unfortunate as it is. I would love nothing more, and you guys can put two and two together. Jake was my childhood, the prime teenage years of my life, right? Like Jacob deGrom, the greatest pitcher I've ever seen play, the greatest Met I've ever seen wear Mets uniform. Soto, I'm sorry, you haven't even gotten close. You're a great player, maybe the most talented, But in terms of the best player that I've ever seen wear Met uniforms, Jacob deGrom is not even close at this point. So that's where I'm at. That's where I'll always be for the rest of my life. I will love to talk about Jacob deGrom, and he's going to be a Hall of Famer too. That's a conversation for another day. I know he's not at 100 wins, but the way he's pitching in 2025, people need to wake up. He is going to be a Hall of Famer if this continues. So I get the idea if he's pitching like this, bring him back. But the Rangers, I just don't. That was Heyman's real point from the conversation last week, not even from the Mets perspective, because we all know how that seemingly ended, even though I do think that that's still up in the air. Yeah, it's more from the Rangers side that if you ask the Rangers, hey, who are going to be some top contracts that you'd be selling off if you continue to lose, it wouldn't be deGrom. And that's where we were misinformed. I would, thinking for a good amount of time, and then things change within the Rangers organization. And again, that's why you hear these things come out. So mindsets change within these front offices, and clearly they changed on deGrom. Even if they were, never open to trading him, I think that was on the table at some point. But now I don't think it is at all. So I hear you on the Jake stuff. I do. What's the Mets record since last night? Or since that night? How many injuries? It's been a lot. Enough is enough. I hear you. I do. You guys know that. 1% of population, 99. It's not San Francisco. Keep it about baseball. Simple. That's it. And that's what we try to do. Keep it mostly about baseball. We'll always entertain the outside stuff. I think it makes you a more well-rounded person when you can kind of understand these things from both sides. But I hear you guys. I definitely do. You guys know that. Look at where I work. Like, put two and two together. Bregman was my choice for biggest win. Biggest win now move this offseason. Even with his down offensive years, he gets a 4 WAR and defense. It was obvious Vientos was already bad. Lounge, I think you bring up a really good point. Bregman, again, out of most of the names that could become available, he's at top of my list. Above a Buxton, you can get center field production. You just kind of need someone to play the position, which we have in Taylor already. So if you can get a guy like Alex Bregman, and I know that was the thing over the offseason, right? Dan, why are we sitting here in June talking about Bregman? We could have had him this past offseason. It's just the unknown. I think, again, you would have had to pay $40 million. Now you're paying a little bit, with the Red Sox in the mix now. So I don't know. It's just a lot tougher to trade for these guys when you're talking about the offseason versus the regular season. So Bregman, again, top of my list. I just don't think it'll be something that'll happen, unfortunately. I just don't think the Red Sox will do it. Yes, now LFGM, we need to step up now. That's right, Madeline. We just need to step up. Keep winning games, keep stacking wins, and, that's it. Going to do a rapid fire, guys, trying to end this here. I don't know how Ray does it. Keeps to a schedule. Jeez, these comments keep coming in. Love it, though. Love it. Thank you guys for everything. The Brewers are one of the hottest teams in baseball. We are playing one of the worst in baseball. Going to take a miracle tomorrow to beat Mizorowski, especially. I agree, right? Go over the numbers before with Mizorowski. He is a hell of a talent. He has burst onto the scene at the big league level. There's no doubt about it. I think that's going to continue for him over the course of this season and hopefully for his career. But nobody's perfect. We brought up the Imanaga stuff before. I mean, any guy can get tagged on any given night. And especially when you're playing a team like the Brewers, which, again, on a hot streak, very good team, one of the hottest in the game, they got to cool down eventually too. So the Mets at one point were the hottest team in the sport. Anything can happen, no doubt about it. But the work's cut out for the Mets. The work is cut out for this team. I'm going to go through some of these comments, guys. I appreciate you. Goomba, feeling better. Explosive, maybe pitcher. Yep. Kieran Keller. Yeah, well, we saw him last night too, right? How special is he? Really good player, really good pitcher. Friendly deal. He signed an extension. Would they trade him after the first year of his extension? I'm not sure, but it's something definitely to consider. He pounds the zone. He controls the zone. And he's a 3. He's a 4. In a perfect world, probably 3. But if you can accumulate a bunch of 3s in a rotation, you're doing all right. You really, really are. Is there history where coaching changes in a season have had a huge impact? Off the top of my head, no. Maybe I forget when Girardi was let go with the Phillies and they bring in Gabe Kapler and they might have went to the World Series 22. I'm not sure if that was the season, but they didn't even end up winning it. That's just off the top of my head. I don't think it has. Usually it's not a good recipe for success when you let go of your head coach mid-season, right? So or coaching changes you're talking about. Even then, I'm not sure. Because even thinking about hitting coaches that were relieved of duties this year, Bud Black, he was the hitting coach on the Rockies, manager is the hitting coach on the Rangers. Brett Boone fills in, brother of Aaron Boone, hasn't really changed much with the Rangers. They're still hanging right below 500. So I don't know if coaching changes really make that all of a difference. You also need somebody to replace them, right? And firing Chavez, we wake up tomorrow, we check our phones. Hey, Chavez has been relieved of his duties. Okay, who's next? Who will take the hitting coach duties of the New York Mets? It's a tough task. Bad voice crack there. Tough task. It really is. And you're hearing some stuff more from the Carlos Baerga camp and Mike Deportes as well. More on the Spanish side. They do good reporting within baseball. But they were talking about Beltran apparently maybe in the mix, either for the hitting coach, which could be an option. I don't think that'd be the best bet, but also maybe as a GM, as we've floated to, and we've seen that. So changes could be happening for the Mets, but I don't think a coaching change mid-season has that big of an effect as we often like to think. Hebrew again. Why trade for a pitcher when we have two potential aces that are ready to come up? The guy on the market we'd be getting is Michael King. Yeah, I hear you on King. Would make a lot of sense. He can pitch in New York. He's a guy that definitely would make a lot of sense. We were calling for that in the offseason. Michael King would be a really, really good get for the Mets. But you're right on the potential aces and all that stuff. Jonah Tong, McLean. We have all these Sproat coming up. I get it. The future's bright. Really, really is. But you got to get there. Marcus, I like Gallen as a rental. I know he's been struggling, but throw his ass in the pitching lab, and as soon as he gets off the plane, right? Yeah, Gallen, really good arm. Really, really good arm. Has had a little bit of a rough stretch this year, but I think he would be a guy, to your point, put him in the lab, and that would really be a good get for the Mets. Pitched well against the Yankees earlier in the year, pitched well against the Mets as well. So Gallen, definitely a name to consider. Of the top echelon guys, if you could tell me we could swing Freddie Peralta and Zach Gallen, now that's really swinging high. If you could say maybe Zach Gallen and Mitch Keller, or any mix of those guys, that'd be definitely, you're cooking with fire there in a good way. Goomba, Stearns will not give up prospect capital to get anyone huge. We need too much. Only way this gets better is by performing with what we got, like they did the first 2 months. 3 weeks ago, they were saying, I get it, and then you follow up here too. We don't need much. I'm more with you on that. I subscribe to the mindset of patience is the Mets' best friend. We've said that for a couple weeks. I think the last time I had a live, just one-on-one with you guys, preaching patience. And it helps when dealing with what do you have with Brandon Sproat? What do you have with Ronnie Mauricio? What do you have with these guys? It's important to see. And that's why I don't think the big trade is coming necessarily this year. I think a trade is coming, no doubt. That's been well documented, well talked about. The Mets are going to have to trade if they want to improve this team. But I just don't think it's going to be that big trade that we envision. That might be more of a 2026 kind of consideration. I was the one screaming, for Soto to hit third all season. Look how he has taken off since then. No doubt. No doubt. Love you, Dan, on your own too. You should do more solos. No disrespect to Ray. Hey, I hear you. No, I get it. And I appreciate Ray for giving me this opportunity to get up on Metcast. Been a host with him for about a year and a half now, done spaces. And it's really taken me to a comfortable point. And I'm still working on stuff too, right? Like I'm not always comfortable in front of the camera and working on transitions and stuff. So it's all good, but I'll definitely put in a note to Ray. Maybe we'll get some more solos. This definitely fun. Appreciate it, Madeline, of course. Goomba, The musical positions and lineup needs to stop. Baseball is a rhythm game. Once in a while I get, but every day is not good to players, in my opinion. This has been a concern for most of the season, right? You could say even starting with Acuna. He has a great March, great April, and then he just doesn't play consistently enough, and we kind of saw the reason why. But eventually, too, for Beatty, homers off Zach Wheeler, gets sent down. And these have been the things that we've seen with the Mets. Vientos, going back to last season, hits a walk-off, gets sent down. Alvarez this year pads on to a Mets lead, gets sent down, mainly because of the defense, but gets sent down nevertheless. So a lot of the musical positions, musical chairs, constantly moving these guys around goes back to the stability point before. You have a stable 1 through 4, 1 through 5. You really want that stable 1 through 9, just like the 1998 Yankees. Now, it's a lot easier said than done, but you just want to keep building. That's all. Just keep piece by piece. Hopefully a guy starts to hit, turns a corner. And that's all you can hope, one by one. So, but I get it with the yo-yoing up and down. It's been too much of that. And from the starts to the sits, not even the call-ups and the call-downs, just not playing Beatty consistently enough, not playing Mauricio consistently enough. So I get it, Goomba. I do. You know that. I know that. It's where we're at. Marcus, pitching staff needs a solid, mature, stabilizing force while waiting on all the injury cases. I think this is a tale as good as time in baseball spaces as we get more advanced into the data and StatCast world. Do you need an ace? Or do you really need an ace? And then my follow-up question is, how many aces are there in baseball? It's not as many as there once were, right? It's not Wainwright and you got Sabathia, Kershaw, Felix Hernandez, Mad Bum, Scherzer, Verlander. You don't have that. Right now, off the top of my head, I'll probably forget a name or two, but Tariq Skubal, Paul Skeens, Jacob deGrom, still an ace in this game. Zach Wheeler. So there's not many. I could rattle off 10 years ago. Now it's very hard. Skubal's in a class of his own. Skeens is in a class of his own. Even the Sandys, who we like to think of has ace-like stuff year over year, he's been one of the more consistent guys. Even he's getting, rocked this year. It's the best way to put it. No, I want to give credit to Logan Webb. He is an ace in this game. And because, again, he's not going to blow you away with the numbers. He's not going to blow you away with the stats. Velocity, same thing. This is a guy who takes the mound every single season. 200 innings, 215 innings, 192 innings, 200 innings. Aces are made up of a bunch of different things. If you can get a workhorse in here for the Mets, that might be the difference, especially with all these injuries. So, again, ace is a very gray area, especially in the world we're in right now. But, go back, of course, many years ago, you knew who the aces were in baseball. So, it's all good. Correct. Maybe not directed to me, maybe directed to me. I hope I am correct, but can't bat 1,000. Buzz, what's up, Buzz? Appreciate you, man. Chapman. Okay, assume you're talking about Aroldis Chapman. Yes, the Red Sox. Hopefully the Sox will sell. Mintu's injury hurt. Definitely need 2 big bats. Vientos' struggles have hurt the team, not to mention Alvarez. Right. Alvarez, start with him, definitely hurt the team. He's hurt himself. That's been the issue. I mean, whether it be a hamate bone issue, whether it be the thumb last year, I always go back to weighing on the side of precaution because Alvarez is still so young. He's playing a position that's physically demanding, and he's getting physically beat up. So that does take a step back and require him to go back to AAA. Vientos' struggles have hurt the team, because this is a guy that they want to keep up at the big league level, and he's looked like a flash in the pan since being activated in Pittsburgh. I don't know what the answer is. He needs to start hitting soon, or Vientos is I don't know what the future would be. You would think maybe first base. It can't be long-term third base, though. So Chapman would be a great addition. Hopefully the Sox will sell. That's really the thing, too, right now, right? As we've talked about. No team really knows outside of maybe 5 that are selling or who's buying. It's just too early, even on July 1st. So happy Bobby Bonilla Day again to everybody. Let you guys have that conversation. All great stuff. Hebrew, again, thank you for the $5 before. What's up, Dan? You're under 25. LOL, lucky you. You haven't had to watch this for 40 years. Yes. Guess I, a little lucky in that regard, but yes, only 23. Only 23, excuse me. Started becoming a Mets fan 2010, about. It all started to come together then. But really, started hitting the stride 2012, hits home, R.A. Dickey, Cy Young, Johan, Nohan, just some good stuff. So, it's all good, but still learning every single day, just trying to grow, learn more about the Mets, and keep the line moving. But I've been watching since 1979, Goomba. As a matter of fact, it is my birthday today. Round of applause for Hebrew Hammer. Let's go. Happy birthday, brother. Happy birthday. Goomba. Holmes is another problem. Holmes, sweet Holmes. He's almost at his innings limit already. If we make the playoffs, he'll be in the pen, which is a good thing for the pen, but who's starting? Good question. So Holmes, as you've said and as you've noted, yes, I believe he's could be off 80 pitches or 80 innings already under his arm, and it's only climbing. So he was slated to go tonight. Obviously, with the rain out, that isn't happening. But yes, Holmes's issues, the walks are creeping into the picture now for him too, which wasn't an issue. So I don't know if that's chalked up to his usage. I don't think it is, because you hear him after these games and he sounds confident. He would probably let you know, yeah, I was feeling a little winded there, or my arm started to feel it. No, he feels fine. So, again, I say it all the time. Clay Holmes, one of the first guys to come to spring training, one of the first guys in 2025 to be at camp. So it does feel like, he's probably built up for this, but it is a concern. And when the playoffs come around, I hear you. I would probably move him to the pen too. Because if you're in a wild card situation, let's be honest. I hope the Mets aren't in a wild card. But if they happen to find themselves in that spot, you have three arms going in that series. It would probably be Senga, Manaea. I don't know if Holmes gets that third start. It could be Peterson. Could be Montas. Could be any of these pitchers. So that's the thing to look at. If it's Peterson or Holmes, the odd guy probably goes to the pen in a playoff situation. So bad feeling. Yeah, I hear you about the bad feeling stuff. I do. I got to get through this, guys. It's killing me if I don't get through this quicker. Madeline. Yeah. WFAN, happy birthday again, 38. We're going to go through this quick, rapid fire edition. These are from 8:53. It's 9:38. So maybe I'm slacking, but you guys also providing some good conversations here tonight. So I appreciate that. Rapid fire time. Here we go. Frank, Nimo Shabbat lead off bat second. Yes, Frank, I agree. Dan, you're the man. Goomba, thank you. I love Mendy, says Madeline. I love Mendy too, Madeline, no doubt. Mizrowski's Terminator in the image of Nolan Ryan. Jeez. Oh, man. Nolan was a special player, but Mizrowski still a lot to prove, no doubt about that. Did Stearns draft Mizrowski? No, I don't believe he did. I can fact check that for you in one moment here. Give me 2 seconds. 2022 draft. So, actually, yes. Mizrowski was a David Stearns guy, funny enough. So you learn something new every day. This is a bookie game all over it. Either 15 Ks and lose 12-0 or Mets win 2-0, one or the other. I assume you're talking like a sports bookie and how they can make money off a game like this. I hear you. 15 Ks. Yeah, the Mets could go down swinging, or they could do some swinging and hopefully start their series off against the Brewers on the right foot. Goomba reminds me of the Red Sox with Crochet. Yes, I agree. Would have thought he'd match up somehow. Drafts. This guy is slinging shots 6'8", 180. No, he is. Listen, Mizrowski is a freak. Yeah, he is a freak. He's going to need a new arm at 26. Well, that's the issue too. High velocity. Nobody wants to have the conversation about Paul Skeens either, right? Has a hot girlfriend. He's going to need Tommy John. So that's something that a lot of people are really hoping doesn't happen because nobody wants to see injuries. But the way of baseball today, these pitchers are ticking time bombs. Can make the case Jonah Tong is one too. So never want to say that, but throwing more 102 fastballs than the rest of MLB combined. It's crazy, bro. Like 20 a game. No, it's it reminds you of DeGrom, doesn't it? Because that was the thing with Jake, and that's what Texas understood. And shout out to Texas and their pitching department. They understood that, hey, Jake can still be an otherworldly pitcher. Jacob DeGrom still has some of the best stuff baseball's ever seen. 2,400 RPMs on a 94-mile-an-hour slider doesn't grow on trees. So those are things that Texas identified and said, Jake, we got to keep you healthy. We're paying you 5 years, $185 million. We need you to stay on the field. And up to this point, he has in 2025, and a lot of that is because they scaled back his velocity. Not to bury the lead, but that's what they did. They scaled back his velocity. He's not throwing 102. Jacob DeGrom is living at 97, 98, really 96, 97, and he can get it up to 98, 99 if he wants to, maybe even 100. He is that good of a pitcher. But shout out for Texas for identifying that. But Mizorowski, yeah, you could consider him a ticking time bomb, but you obviously hope not. You never want to wish that on anybody. I would definitely pursue Kyle Tucker and sign him for next season. Well, makes two of us, my friend. I just don't think the Cubs are going to be departing with Kyle Tucker. They got something really special over there with PCA and him. So we'll see. We'll see. Why isn't he ready? 1.75, talking about Tong, and I think Goomba answers you here. It's AA. That's kind of what we're dealing with. So McLean 100% ready. People all over the board tonight with this. It's tough. You could say he's ready. I'm more in the boat on just wait and see a little bit longer. There's still other guys in the system I'd like to see before Jonah Tong. And Jonah Tong could be a September call. That could be something. But you haven't even seen Brandon Sproat. So that's all. Just give it more patience. I know it's tough when the Mets are losing the way that they are, but just got to be a little patient if you can. Going through these comments, blah, blah. If I skip over them, I'm so sorry. Pitching is the key, Anthony, no doubt. Pete's won at least 15 to 20 games by himself this year. He really has. It's reflected in the WAR. It's reflected in just the production you've seen from Pete this year. He has been a completely different player. The approach has been different. He talks about confidence at the plate. He's not really guessing anymore. And I don't think that was ever his strategy, but you've heard in past off seasons on some of these, it's impossible to get Pete on an audio in the off season, but the moments that you do get him, they're memorable. And I remember him saying, yeah, he was kind of guessing at some of these pitches when he was going through a slump and going through, certain, fastball outside corner. That's my spot. That's what I'm going with. And he was talking about that with Devin Williams too, and his changeup outside part of the plate against, funny enough, Milwaukee. And he took it to right field, and that's all she wrote in the wild card for the Mets in 24. But listen, Pete Alonso has refined his approach. He's muscled up a little bit. It seems like every season he's losing a little bit more pounds and gaining a little bit more muscle. And it's reflected in his game. It really, really has. Pete Alonso's really emerged. He was talking on Evan and Tiki last week. They were at the Cadillac Club, and Pete joined them. Talked about his defensive miscues. The one with Senga, the one with Stanek. Pete has owned it. He's gotten a lot better with the plays at first base. There was one last week too, where he had a nice turn at second base. So you're seeing it in spurts. I'm always going to take the L on the idea that I had him winning a Gold Glove in 2025. I might not ever live that down. Luckily, people don't get on me. I appreciate you guys for not really, egging that on more than it should be, but I was definitely wrong with that. I thought he'd have a better year defensively, but overall, it has not been as bad as we like to make it think. And he's only getting better each year. So maybe next year, the year for Pete Alonso's Gold Glove. But, that's kind of where we're at. Going through these here. Got to see how the rest of the season goes. 100% Goomba. Who is Boy Genius? Probably Martino Stearns. Puppet Mets fan, this rain delay could only make bad pitchers worse, like Bronzabon. I hear you. Horrible losses, it'll affect September standings. It could, definitely could. Always Gary Sanchez in Baltimore. How about Goodwin and Doyle from Colorado? Absolutely. Both names I would consider as well. And that's the thing. The Rockies are going to be a really, really interesting team. Do you give up a guy like Goodwin? I'm not sure, but Doyle could make sense. It's something to definitely can think about. Definitely. Think about Gary Sanchez. Maybe hold on to him. Grimace is the GOAT. Yes, he is. Screw Tom Hanks. I can't even look at him. Jason Kidd throwing out the first pitch. That'd be something, right? The Mets introduced Jason Kidd with the first pitch of the Mets game. Gonna hire Dawn Staley. Yeah, maybe. At this point, I don't even know. I don't know who the Knicks are going to go get. It's just crazy, guys. Really crazy. Wish Harvey didn't get so much ish. Doodly Blues out arm trying to save us in the World Series. People crap on him. Can't stand it. Harvey was a legend, Goomba. You know that. Again, that's my generation, 2015. The development of those guys, seeing them prosper, and then seeing it all fold. And Harvey was definitely a part of the highs, but also a part of the lowest lows as well. So, and that's leaving out the illegal drugs. Let's keep it moving here. Hebrew, 100%. Yes, sir. Daniel Caps. Great stuff. Appreciate the comments, guys. I appreciate you guys having conversations amongst yourselves. Keeps it going, too. It's just, for me, I got to be better with bringing these up. That's like me not knowing last few years. We need more than Soto to upgrade and go far. This is an interesting one, right? I think you do need more than Soto. That's evident. But Soto hasn't been playing to the back of his baseball card this year. If you had a consistent 285, 290, 410, 420 on base Juan Soto, maybe things are a little bit different in terms of where we're looking. Maybe we're looking down at the rest of the field instead of looking up at the rest of the field right now. So I hear you. I definitely do. You could have had a better start to the season if you were the Mets, no doubt about it. Danny Burgers from Mets hitting coach lounge says, yeah, who knows? Who really knows? Only way firing a hitting coach works if the team hates the coach. I don't know if that's the case. Pete Senger thing coupled. Yeah, I don't think nobody hates a strong word. I don't think they dislike Chavez at all. You can make the case Pete's going outside and getting other hitting help from Boris's camp over there in Tampa. I don't make much of that either. There's a lot of players in baseball that go out of their comfort zones to go and get other help. Aaron Judge does it all the time. So this is something that's not, out of the ordinary. But I hear you. If they turn on Chavez, yeah, he's good as gone. But I do think there's a relationship between Chavez and these players, and that's what we often forget. We forget these things as fans. We forget that these guys are human and have these relationships. We forget that Francisco Alvarez has a kid and is dealing with a lot on his plate. And maybe that's why he's not hitting to our standard at home. So that's all. Just, try to humanize some of this too. That's what we try to do here at Metcast. Yeah, Danny Burgers, that'd be funny, right? He's a nutrition coach too. You guys got jokes tonight, man. He's just chilling with the Pirates right now as a special instructor to them. I thought he was a coach. I looked it up. Special instructor. So I don't, making up positions out here. It's going to be like last year. Not all in the trade. That's next year. Yeah, could be. Could be. Yeah, funny stuff here from Hebrew. Goomba, me, you, and Dan could do a better job for the Mets rather than what they have. Hey, listen, they need an arm. I'll drop everything and pitch for the Mets. That is some of the most insane stuff we could ever imagine. Not going to happen. But they need arms that can. They need arms that can pitch. And that's the real problem right now. You're not getting production. It starts with the starters, but the bullpen hasn't helped themselves either, if we're being honest. So overall needs to be better across the board. There's no doubt about it. No doubt. So I think that's it through some of these comments, just letting you guys kind of go at it. Hebrew, Goomba going at it. Love it, guys. Love the conversations. I don't know if anybody got the Mets trivia question, the first player that they ever drafted, but we got a couple of seconds here before we wind up. So I'll get to try to some of these comments as they roll in. But yeah, first Mets player that they ever drafted, he was a catcher. Just throwing it out there, seeing what's up. Okay. Thank you for the birthday wishes, Dan. Of course, Hebrew. And thank you for spending your birthday with me. I actually find that very humbling. That's definitely, I appreciate it. I was born in 1977, started watching in 1979. I watched 1986, and it was the most amazing feeling. And listen, that's the feeling that a lot of younger Mets fans, I'd say 35 and under, you could even put that boat. But Mets fans who have never seen a ring, 39 years since 1986. And there's a lot of fans in that boat with me who have not seen one and would really like to see one soon. 2015 robbed, you can make the case. 2024, you can make the case that team had World Series expectations. But shout out to the ones like you, Hebrew, who got to see the good times. And then you can embark your wisdom on younger Met fans like myself, who, let's be honest, there's very little wisdom amongst the Mets younger community. And I love the Mets younger community. I do. And that sounds so wrong to say, teenager, like the younger fans getting into it and stuff. A lot of them just, again, all they know is Steve Cohen. All they know is Juan Soto at this point. That's the really younger fans. But a lot of just, they don't get that the times have been worse. They want it right now. Like, I hear you. I want to win a World Series tomorrow too. But there is some line of patience that you need. Otherwise, you'll bankrupt the Mets and we'll be in a 10-year downturn. I don't think anybody wants that. So, all good. I still watch every DeGrom game. Yeah, I hear you. I do. DeGrom's a guy, like, he's somebody who a lot of us look at and just have a very soft spot in our hearts. Like, he was our Tom Seaver, right? For the older people, you saw Tom Seaver, you saw Dwight Gooden, Nolan Ryan, Ed Kranepool. Like, these are all names that, at the end of Tug McGraw, but at the end of the day, I think we understand the Mets have been built on pitching, right? That was something that their organization, you go back in their history, that's like the number one thing that they've built themselves on, the Kuzmans, right? So I don't know. I just think it's something, right now we look at and we take it for granted, seeing a guy like Jacob deGrom. And yes, we want him on the Mets, but I do think that ship has sadly sailed. Jacob deGrom and Clayton Kershaw, the two best pitchers. Yeah. Oh, of course. 2014 Kershaw was unbelievable when deGrom was winning Rookie of the Year, funny enough. But of course, you had the high points of Felix, the high points of CC, the high points of Wainwright, Verlander, Scherzer, Greinke, David Price. There's not many that reached the mountain that Clayton did. What Clayton did was unbelievable, but definitely Jacob deGrom, no doubt. deGrom and Doc, best I've seen for the Mets, 100%. I saw a video of Pete deadlifting 600 pounds. Jeez, for a set of 12 like it was nothing. Bro is a monster. You sure that wasn't before the home run derby? Bro is a monster. I don't know what call him fat. I used to get the power 360, squat 250, 600. No, that's some next level stuff. I hear you on that. Most I've ever benched, 3 plates, 315? That's only for a couple of reps. Like, it's not even really for depth. So I hear you. I do. And he's not fat. That is a common misconception about Pete Alonso. His tale as old as time. I think a lot of it was Todd Frazier giving him the name the Polar Bear, and the rest is history. You're just going to get a lot of fat connotations mixed with that when polar bears are often pretty chubby creatures. So, yeah, it's all good. But Pete Alonso definitely in shape. He is not fat. He's an athlete too. So, but each his own. Everybody has their own opinion. Hebrew, you're killing, man. I know Hebrew's great tonight. He is he's a funny dude. He's keeping us all entertained, for sure. Jimmy Burns, shout out Jimmy Burns, down there in the Atlanta area. So I always look to Jimmy to provide a sense on the Atlanta fans, give me a scope, obviously, from the Mets perspective down south. Jimmy does a great job with that. Maybe mimic what the Braves did in 2021. Look at that. Add veterans like Soler, Adam Duvall, Jock Peterson. Yeah, I think so. Add veteran bats. Who are the veteran bats? Again, we will see. This is a conversation continues to change. Maybe in the next space, Jimmy, I'll have some veteran names to kind of throw at you. Don't think we're considering Suarez a veteran, but you could consider that a veteran bat. But I don't think the Braves would ever trade Ozuna. I don't think the Phillies would ever trade Schwarber, given where these teams are at. But there's names. There's definitely names to consider. I like what the A's are doing. I think the A's have a lot of good talent. If I'm the Mets, I would consider. Of course, Severino comes to mind, but they wouldn't do it. But Tyler Soderstrom, names like that. Denzel Clark in center field. There's pieces in every MLB team that definitely get the back of your neck. You get you going a little bit. But at the end of the day, I don't think these teams, for the most part, are going to trade to the Mets. So we'll see. Is Chavez to blame? D says. I'll leave that up to you. I don't think, we've covered it, and go back, watch this back if you want to and everything, but we covered a little bit about Chavez. The players have to turn on him. That's kind of the general consensus. If you get that to happen, that clear as day. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think the players do like Chavez, and they do value whatever the hitting approach is that he subscribes to. I don't know what it is, but it's clearly not working at this point. But right now, they do feel that it's just a consistency issue, that they have to stick to the plan, stick to the routine. And the relationships are pretty good in the Mets clubhouse between Chavez. So I don't think he's directly to blame, but he does take some of this blame. When your offense isn't hitting, the hitting coach gets blamed. It's just like Jeremy Hefner isn't free of all criticism as well. When the pitching isn't pitching, Jeremy Hefner, I'd like to, see what's going on. Hobie Landreth. Ding, 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 ding. Goomba from left field. He answered the Metcast trivia question correctly, and we'll get some giveaways going too. We did a Brandon Nimmo card giveaway the other night for the Metcast trivia. Just keeping it basic here, just trying to keep your guys' knowledge sharp, and also just reiterate some stuff too for people. Hobie Labyrinth is correct. With the Mets' very first pick, they selected a catcher by the name of Hobie Labyrinth, the immortal from the San Francisco Giants. He was a journeyman catcher, played with a number of teams before his career began in 1950. He previously played with the Reds, the Cardinals, and the Giants before going to the Mets. And he was gone by midseason, traded to the Baltimore Orioles. So the 1962 Mets season, one of the worst in MLB history, as we well know. But there you go. First draft pick. Now you know Mets history. Hobie Landreth. So thank you to Goomba. Metcast trivia question. Answer of the night. Lounge. I love how I said 9:30. It's 10 o'clock. So you guys know how to keep me up past my bedtime, but it's all good. Lounge. Do you think they're trying to reset Alvy's swing back to normal, away from his JD Martinez opposite style? I do think they've tweaked his swing. That's clear as day. It goes back to Chavez too. Why are you tweaking Alvarez's swing? But it's definitely changed. You've seen it more in his approach. He doesn't have that fiery, ferocious with the load. It's more compact back here, and it's just a more quicker load. But you're not seeing that ferocious Francisco Alvarez at the plate. You're not seeing that angry Francisco Alvarez at the plate. I don't know what it is. I do think that a lot of it was the Mets tweaking the style. You never really can put a real pulse on that, but I think they made too many corrections to his swing. Go back to what Martinez was saying last year. Go opposite field, no doubt. Why in the world aren't they promoting McLean and Sproat? Your guess is as good as mine, D. That's it. I don't know the reason. I don't. These guys deserve to be up here. They do. I'm 46, and when they won, decent doesn't count. Had season tickets 2006 to 2008. Been to hundreds of games in 10 cities. Had World Series tickets in 2006. Didn't get to go. Went to game 6 and 7 NLCS. Need a World Series. Goomba, you're a diehard, and you've seen the highs, you've seen the lows. The Mets are doing this for you. People such as yourself, like you just got to go out there, and fans have been around this team and spending money for years. They got to do something. So, all good stuff. I was there in 2006. Andy Chavez, yes, great catch. 203. Okay, I had season tickets that year. Call it the White Towel game. Never heard Shea Stadium like I did that night. Too bad they couldn't hit in. That's brutal. No, it's definitely down years. 2006 to 2008 for the Mets were just awful years. Expectations and then just deflations across the board. So that's it. Guys, we're about at the end of the line. Just like Seth Lugo, Aaron Hum. Oh, jeez. I hate Chavez. Get everything across the board here. Me too, bro. Game 6 and 7. Look at that. Andy Chavez as my player on the team. Crazy, ain't it? Better not happen again. Same feel when we signed Soto. I think Soto's a different caliber player than the Mets have ever had in their history. It's hard to compare him to anybody at this point. Talk to me after the season, but really talk to me about 2 or 3 years into this contract. I want to see where Soto is, where the Mets are at. A lot of things to think about. Guys, we're going to wrap up this space. This great live. Over 750 people tuned in at some point today. Probably about a couple hundred concurrent, which is awesome. I can't thank you guys enough. This has been a dream come true to be able to do things like this, to be able to work in New York City and work in sports and be able to talk about the Mets with you guys. I truthfully value it, and I truthfully want to get better every single day at what I do. Take this very seriously, as you can tell. So, again, thank you guys. As always, the Mets have their work cut out for them tomorrow. They got a big series coming up against the Milwaukee Brewers. This is it. You really want to put together a good stretch if you're the Mets. This is when you do it. If you really want to win games, if you're the New York Mets, dare I say turn your season around, this is how you do it. So I think we're seeing slowly but surely over time, it's figuring itself out. So it's doing it. Real quick here, I just want to bring up kind of what we're looking at moving forward as we address these things coming up at the deadline, coming up as we get ready, of course, for the Mets and the Brewers. The updated, whatever you want to call it, I don't know what this would be, here from Fangraphs, just looking at what the rotation's looking like and what we're kind of getting a sense of injury-wise. So these are all the different rotations in baseball. You got the Mets. This is what we're looking at as a collective, right? Here's a snapshot, all the numbers you need to really know at this point. Some good, some bad. You got the 3 injuries, you got the innings pitched. Clay Holmes up at 73, clearly a problem. Left on base, still. It's just give it time. That's all. Hopefully you get these guys back and you're looking up. But again, this season is it's just crazy, guys. It really is. It's one of those seasons. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And this is what I also wanted to pull up too. Here we go. And then I promise we are wrapping up after this, guys. So this is the upcoming pitchers for the New York Mets. I know it looks a little confusing all over the place. Let's just make it easy on you guys. I don't want to go down the whole rabbit hole of every team and what the Mets are looking at. But here's the upcoming series just for the Mets. We'll keep it easy. It's like glitching out. Here we go. Hopefully you guys can read that. So Fangraphs does a cool job where it's not always accurate. MLB.com, the one we showed before, is more accurate. They haven't updated for tomorrow, but this is an updated kind of look of what to expect for the next couple of series in terms of pitchers. And I know a lot of people want to know about the Subway Series, so there you go. Those are kind of the moves that we're looking at. The rotation with how it lines up. Tidwell, Mizorowski, Peterson versus former Met Quintana, Paul Blackburn versus Marcus Stroman. What a game that'll be. And these are subject to change. Montas versus Rodon, and then Manaea versus Fried, which is going to be a great game on Sunday. And then Clay Holmes, David Peterson, Paul Blackburn, Brandon Young, Sagano, and Morton. As the Mets have an off day on Monday, they get ready to go through the American League East, but they got to go through the NL Central first. And that starts again. Got swept by the Pirates. Maybe you can sweep the Milwaukee Brewers. I don't know why the screen's glitching like that. I know that's a distraction, so we'll get that off the screen. But yeah, Subway Series coming up. I will be at all 3 games of the Subway Series. Very fortunate to be there for the New York Post. So check me out. I will definitely meet up with any of you guys if you want to. Just hit me up. It would be awesome to connect with some of you guys as we did in the past. But listen, season's going to keep rolling. Mets going to keep playing. And the fans better come out and keep supporting, right? I know it's easy. Tomorrow's probably going to be that first game of the doubleheader, maybe a ghost town. It's the middle of a work day in the middle of New York City. Maybe tough to get people out to the ballpark, but tomorrow night, better be a packed house. Citi Field better be buzzing because these games are very important. Very, very important. Go sweep the Milwaukee Brewers and leave no stone unturned. They collapsed 07, collapsed 08. Yep, Jerry Manuel, last game at Shea, 08. You see that behind me. We all remember the last game at Shea, of course. Sickening 07, 08. And guys, as always, thank you for watching. This is Metcast. I've been Dan Bartels. Love chopping it up with you guys. Took way longer than I expected, but I don't really care. I'm going to go to sleep. And you should too. Everybody will talk tomorrow. Catch me on Spaces. Catch me on X. Follow me at X. Dan Bartels too. Follow the New York Post on socials as well. And we'll be back before too long. Thank you for watching Metcast. And as always, let's go Mets. Have a great night, everybody. Appreciate you. I got on one more time. Appreciate you, Goomba. Everybody have a great night. Stay blessed and stay safe.